medical college in Delhi, and it was in Wolverhampton, and it was very late at night. Might have been even 1 o'clock in the night, and they were, as usual, we all waiting for a call to come in between calls, and well, I happened to make the mistake of saying that Bhagavad Gita should be read by everybody.
Why are you saying you
And
made the mistake
this
of
person said that, well, there's no point in reading Bhagavad Gita. So they said that Bhagavad Gita shouldn't be read because Krishna didn't exist. So that's how the whole argument started. And that's when I started to realize that, well, how can we be sure? And that's how that film got made.
fantastic?
So,
Dr. Pandit, I would just interrupt you for a minute. We would like you to just check out your PPT linkages so that then we start formally with whenever Aryan gives us the clue and RC gives us the clue, we
right.
can do a formal intro. Aryan ji, please, आप थोड़ा इनका link कर दें पहले.
Yeah, namaste, Pandit ji.
Oh, namaste, Gigi. I was talking about you earlier to Neeraji about what a brilliant scientist you are. So,
No, he has created a beautiful Krishna on the Yamuna. I'm going to share today with everybody. I was keeping it for tonight. I said I'm going to announce it tonight that my friend Jijit ji has. He was very kind when I went to Bangalore for my treatment at Sri Shri's. He used to force me to come to his house for a day and hosted me. It was really lovely meeting your family, Jijit ji. I'm really grateful. आप पहले अपना PPT check कर लो and then we start
right.
off.
I'll just share a screen and just see whether it's coming.
Yeah, that is it. And then we.
Oh, it's disabled for the moment. It's disabled for the moment. So.
Okay, 1 second.
Shall I try again?
Please try.
No, disabled again.
Just give me a second.
Sure.
I hope you have those lovely, sky views. It's so amazing to see them actually.
Yes, I've actually also got Redshift on this particular computer.
Okay.
And we can share that if there's time. I mean, what I'm going to try and sort of show is in 5 or 6 parts.
Okay.
And the thing is, you see, so a lot of my students are here, and Jijit, of course, understands the, this
is
sort
it
of
done
stuff.
so that I can start formally introducing you and start? Is it done, that screen sharing?
Let me try again.
Because that's very important.
Yes. Now I'm able to do it. Just give me 1 second.
Please.
Yeah. So can you see that?
So we'll do a formal introduction and then start. So you may please just for a little while just get off the screen. Please.
1 second.
Yeah.
So
Check
I will just go there.
You do your checking and we'll carry on.
So this is fine, no? Everybody can see it.
Yes.
Okay. Let me stop that. Right. Fine. Right.
RC शुरू करें आर्यन अब बताओ. Is it, or shall we wait? What is the time? I have no issues. We can start if you're all okay.
I think you should start because it's 10 minutes before.
Okay.
All right. I think I'll just do a little technical briefing again. So we are not doing a live session. So we all have the opportunity to get our messages very strongly and very nicely and organizedly. जहाँ पे भी हमें लगे. So Neeraji will go through your introduction, Dr. Manish.
Yeah.
And then probably you'll start. Okay, make छोटा सा establishment. I'll try and talk about 30 seconds about the relevance of Indraprastha talks with the importance, the significance of what we are doing. And till then, again, we are going to go. We'll keep Dr. Pandit and the panel live, and then after that, we'll come up. RC and me will come up with few questions, and then we'll open the questions for the participants out here. Till then, please bear with us. We are going to mute your video and enjoy the. And not only enjoy, just to cherish the journey through which Dr. Manish Pandit takes us. Okay? Okay. Dheeraj, you ready?
Okay, you give me the clue, I get started.
Right.
Ready?
Just 1 second. All right, we are all set, Dheeraj. Please.
Thank you, Aryan. Good evening, everybody. Before we introduce Dr. Pandit, I would like to share with the panel here. We are very fortunate that Draupadi Dream Trust, that is completing its 18th year, to be associated with two wonderful persons in my life who are really contributing so much to take forward the vision of the trust, that is to create a better understanding and appreciation of our ancient heritage and history and culture. Dr. Pandit, you'll be very happy to know that the two people I'm talking about, one is RC, that is Mr. Ranjit Chaturvedi. You had the pleasure of seeing his chest. Remember, I sent you one.
Right.
Yeah. So he is with us. Hail hearty with your good wishes. He's a prominent businessman with businesses across India and Africa. But for a cause like this, and for other causes that he feels are related to our ancient history and culture, which is water bodies like the river Yamuna. And he feels and he has a vision that India in the ancient times was Atmanirbhar, which you know it was. And he wants to bring back not only the glory and the preservation of our heritage, water bodies and heritage sites, but also to bring in the youth for an Atmanirbhar Bharat. And this whole, his inspiration came actually during the COVID times when he had this opportunity to be at home, but rather than sitting at home, he is a person who walks the talk. So he started on a Padayatra from Yamunotri till Mathura via Delhi. And we had the good fortune of associating with him to do a very auspicious sacred ceremony of Ma Yamuna and Sri Krishna at the banks of Yamuna River on April 10th. It was a lovely Viva ceremony. It's really something to be cherished for all life. And along with him is Aryan. Aryan is a very, very creative person, an entrepreneur who he was the one to have the first web series on internet with something called Run. It was basically a cricket series, but he called it Run. So he feels Mahabharat is a Ranarumi. So somehow, we met at some point, I don't remember, I think 2015. Since then, he has been supporting as a CSR activity all our digital work. And sometimes I have to force him to pay him कि तुमने ये काम किया, please पैसा लो. He says, Neeta ji, this is my CSR. So he is doing ad films for advertising for companies. He does a lot of work for election commission, government organizations, plus private people. And he's very much involved in the population what is it called? Bharat kya hai?
Bharat for population.
Bharat for population.
We're working on the population problem.
Population control. He's involved with that NGO also. So these are two people who have helped me to put this together. And our objective here actually is to make not only the whole video as a good, structured video on a line, but also to have capsules. That's why I'm so happy you're doing your program in capsules. And I think Dr. Manish Pandit is a very well-known medical doctor. He studied in Pune. I think Dr. Pandit, you will be able to say a little more about yourself. But he studied in Pune. He's a doctor and he's a nuclear physicist. But as he started saying how he came into this whole thing, and our upbringing has been of a very traditional families. All of us over here have grown up with traditional things, no matter whether it's Irish nuns influencing me or Ranjit ji studying abroad and getting influenced by foreigners, etc. All of us have had that convent education, but we are so happy that we are rooted to our roots. And Dr. Pandit has got into this. He has this. उनको भी वो बीमारी लग गई जो मुझे लग गई कि हमें अपने ancient roots को revive karna hai. And he started this whole thing about Krishna, as he said. And then somebody challenged him about the date. So he actually learned astronomy and learned astrology to get into this. So I will not say much because his work will show you how much work he has done. He's made several films. He's made a film with Dovalji. He's made a film with Professor Lal. He's made a film on Krishna, and he makes these small films, etc. So he's also equally, a very, very inspiring person. And if RC and Aryan would like to say hello to him, and then we can hand over to this thing.
Definitely, Dr. Pandit, welcome to the session. मैं थोड़ा सा correction करूँगा नीरा जी. I definitely tried making the first web series of India. The name was Ranbhumi, but that is not because I believe that Mahabharata was a war. Because for me, Mahabharata is the greater Bharat, Mahabharat.
Yes. Yes.
The name was Ranbhumi because run is associated with cricket and the bhumi is the ground. But it's true that most of the characters which I had taken in that particular web series was derived from the character essence of Mahabharat, because I think Mahabharat completely defines the relationship of people. So because it was a saga and a lot of characters, so I tried to derive a lot of character essence from Mahabharat. That's why there's the association of Mahabharat. Mahabharat was an inspiration to build up the characters. Anyway, getting back.
I think RC, I would like RC to say a few words before he starts.
Namaskar, Manish Pandit ji. मैं रंजीत चतुर्वेदी पाठक, Vrindavan born, and I'm so happy to get acquainted with you. और आप जिस विषय पर हम लोग बात करने वाले हैं और जो आपकी रिसर्च है, तो I hope कि ये जो एक कनेक्शन हुआ है यहाँ पर, आपकी जो विद्या है और जो आपको ईश्वर जिस रास्ते पर लेके जा रहा है, being a medical from a medical profession to what? Physicist,
nuclear physicist.
Wow.
Nuclear medicine, actually. Nuclear medicine.
Wow. So Dr. Nagendra was trying to do something like this with the NSA. He had met him. They had something. Dr. Racha Nagendra. लेकिन वो बात आगे बढ़ी नहीं. Anyways, and I hope कि आप के माध्यम से मैं कुछ ऐसा ड्राइव कर पाऊँ, या फिर नीरा जी कुछ ऐसा ड्राइव कर पाए हम यहाँ पर कि जगत कल्याण तो होगा ही, इंद्रप्रस्थ का भी वर्चस्व वापस आए, भारत महान बने, और माँ यमुना के लिए भी आपके अंदर कुछ ऐसी भावना जगे कि आप अपनी विद्या को माँ यमुना के लिए भी इस्तेमाल करें. जय हो. स्वागत है आपका.
And once whenever we are talking about Indraprastha talks, one of the main objective of Indraprastha talks is about, see, we have been listening to a lot of academicians, stalwarts, and people like you. The only gap, what we believe, is the gap between knowledge and youth. So Indraprastha talks is one of the attempt to connect youth to these facts and knowledge and the treasure what we have, to connect them to our root and know our culture a little more, and definitely to understand Indraprastha a little more, because Indraprastha has been the center of our civilization for a long time. So that's the objective. So we'll definitely have we'll have some questions for you after we go through your session.
I want to also introduce Dr. Manish. We have with us a very young but very, very enterprising and very famous architect who's associated with a lot of major projects in India, and his vision is to reinvigorate and to showcase all the spiritual and heritage sites of India. That is Mr. Ojas Hirani from Gujarat. He is associated with the project of Ram Mandir and Kedarnath and Shravasti, and he's talking about, we are talking about Indraprastha now. He's done a project, he's created a project in Dwarka, which we want to take it forward. So we would be needing a lot of your guidance also in those aspects. So Ojas Hirani ji, would you like to say namaskar to Dr. Pandit before he starts?
Namaskar.
Anything would you like to say, please?
Nothing. I would just like to listen in first.
Okay, very good, very good. So Dr. Manish, the floor is all yours.
Right.
Thank you so much for it.
Right. Let me share the screen straight away, and
Yes,
then we'll get to it.
And you are telling us the 5 sections, so you may just tell us so that our focus is in. I'm little crazy, I told you.
Right. No. So before I start, I'd like to remove, like to first remember my guru, and I would like to remember the devatas, because of whom we are all actually over here. Because this is who we are, right? I would also like to remember, the recently passed
Yeah, I was going to say that.
great
Yes.
Dr. Narhari Achar, who is
Yes.
my teacher
Yeah.
in astronomy, and
And our
wonderful man.
association with him, Dr. Pandit, you can
Right,
also
right,
say that also. Yeah.
right, absolutely. A wonderful man, perhaps one of the most humble people. Actually, I've met a lot of physicists who have been very humble, and the more vidya they get, the more humble they get, because you begin to realize your own insignificance, on this earth, and how small you are. Actually, how literally you are nothing. You begin to realize that. But the person who personified that, one of the people who personified that, I think Dr. Narhari Achar, and it is because of him really that I am able to speak in front of you today. Yeah? He passed away quite recently, but we have had a long association over approximately 13 or 14 years. And I, of course, interviewed him for Krishna History or Myth. And well, I learned all this in because of a challenge by another astronomer, which is fine. I mean, these things happen. So as you can see over there, my MBBS is from Pune. And then I went ahead, and so let me try and play this presentation. Actually, that'll be easier. So my MBBS was from Pune, from BJ Medical College. And then I went under some very interesting circumstances, attacks by Naxals and all those sort of things. That's how I landed up in England eventually. And then I got the FRCS in general surgery and FRCS in ANT. And then I had enough of surgery, and then I went on to do a master's in medical in nuclear medicine, and did a completely different shift and trained for X number of years in nuclear medicine, and I'm now in nuclear medicine completely. Now, what exactly are we talking about when we talk about the Mahabharata war? We are talking about
Mahabharata war, Kurukshetra war.
We can talk about Kurukshetra war if you like.
Yeah, Mahabharata narrative. War. Mahabharata narrative.
If you like Mahabharata narrative, Kurukshetra war, yeah. And why do we say that 3067 BC is the year of the war? This is coming from at least these many observations, right? Now we say there are around 300 plus observations in the Mahabharata text, in the critical edition as well as in Gita Press. Effectively, almost all of them are pretty much similar, in the sense there's a few verses, extra, but the astronomy observations are pretty much standard, barring one or two which are extra in the Gita Press, which are useful from our point of view. And so I won't go on to this I'll go on to each one of these in detail. So I won't, dwell too much on this, because otherwise it will become, a paralyzing session, which only my students can stand. So then it becomes
we are lay people,
problem.
So you have to take that into account. Yeah.
Sure. And now this is what, though, it comes down to, and this is one of the slides I had prepared just because, people get very fond of these slides where we compare what a certain date is proving versus what another date cannot prove. And I will go on in the course of this session to actually show you this, the Pratyaksha Pramana for each one of these things. So there are 4 timelines in the war, right? There is a mission of peace timeline of Sri Krishna. There is the moon phases through that pilgrimage, so that particular timeline. There's a war timeline, there's a Balrama's pilgrimage timeline, and there is a Bhishma Moksha timeline. These are the 4 timelines we are talking about, right? And the moon phases through mission of peace to Bhishma Moksha has to be consistent. And that makes all this extremely difficult, because that particular mission of peace of Sri Krishna starts in Kartika Masa, and it starts on a Revati nakshatra. Now I will take you through the nakshatras in a moment as well. And then you have to navigate through the slow moving planets, Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars, and of course, Mercury, Venus. Then we are talking about the eclipses, those which are before the war. Is that solar eclipse having some possibility of being visible from Kurukshetra? What are the alternative verses? Have they been explained? The three eclipses 36 years later, the astronomy around Karna's death, and whether the people are using Nakshatra Pida. And there's one more thing you can add to this is what kind of software are they using? Because this is all simulations in some way or the other. And the simulations are accurate only for JPL, NASA-based software, or you're talking about Redshift or CyberSky. Maybe Voyager you can accept as well, but not Surya Siddhanta based software for various reasons. Right? Surya, because those particular softwares, even the manufacturers of those softwares, vast majority of them, they don't agree with which version of Surya Siddhanta you're using. And there's all sorts of other things which occur in that paradigm. So what we are talking about here is based on that. And majority of the astronomers, I think 99% of the astronomers are basing all their calculations on these sort of things, right? And before I start with the nitty-gritty, there's some basic points, and I want to answer some basic questions which I have myself thought about. See, the first question I want to always ask is, did Kali Yuga occur during or before the start of the Mahabharata war? So when Bhimsen injures, you might all remember, Bhim ne Duryodhan ko gada mari na, है ना? So that was on the thighs. So Balram and Krishna have a dialogue. And because you might remember that Balram gets very annoyed and he says, what is happening over here? You know, this is the wrong thing. And Krishna then says, Kali Yuga has already arrived. Now you can translate this verse in two different ways. You can either say that Kali Yuga was already on during the war, and it is Shalya Parva 59:21 from Critical Edition, this verse. And let me talk about the verse. So if you go to the third line over here, Praptam Kaliyugam Vidhi Pratidnyam Pandavasya cha. So effectively, one translation of this could be even that Kali Yuga has pierced right now. Okay, so Kali Yuga has pierced. So the people who say that Kali Yuga has pierced, including one of the great saints from Madhavacharya Sampradaya, Madhavacharya himself, said that Kali Yuga has come at the time of the Mahabharata war, right? And so if you believe that is actually the case, then in the 18 days of the war, the Kali Yuga has come. Now that is one option for you, but of course the traditionally held option is that Kali Yuga has come in 3102 BCE. So there is your Madhavacharya tradition, by the way, also, because the next question is, what about all these saints? What have they said in the past, right? The great saints. The great saint Madhavacharya, in his tradition, Chatussahastra, this is in Mahabharata Tatparya Nirnay, which is written by him, a commentary, 1237 AD. चतुस्सहस्रे त्रिशतोत्तरे गते संवत्सराणां तु कलौ पृथिव्यां जातः पुनर्विप्रतनुः स भीमो दैत्यैर्निगूढं हरितत्वमाह. Now, for those people who don't know, the great saint Madhavacharya was considered to be an avatara of Vayu. Okay, so he's an avatara of Vayu, and he says that in his previous incarnation he was Bhimsen himself. And he came, he said, 4,300 years. So he said, 4,300 years have elapsed since my last appearance as Bhimsen. And this brings us to 3063 BCE, which is quite an interesting point. So Madhavacharya himself, what I'm trying to say, is saying that somewhere around 3K BCE is the Mahabharata war. Okay. So Madhavacharya Sampradaya is saying that. And of course, the traditional date of Kali Yuga is 3102 BCE. So the inference is clear that either Kali Yuga is already on at the time of the war, or that Kali Yuga arrives in the war timeline. Either be the case, but that is what we are talking about over here, right? And the traditional date of Kali Yuga is around 3102 BC. Now, this particular theory is not based on the placement of Kali Yuga. 3067 BCE is the only theory amongst all the theories who is not basing them on Kali Yuga. But These are questions which people ask, and therefore I'm placing it very, very precisely at the moment. Okay. Now, what does that mean? What does Kali Yuga was on at the time of the Mahabharata war establish? Now, if you go to the left side of the screen, you will see that there are some dates over there in yellow. 3137 BC, 3138 BC, 3139, 3140, and 3143 BC, right? These are the traditional dates of the Mahabharata war. And what is the tradition? There is one tradition which is saying, or the belief, there is a belief structure which is saying that the war is occurring 36 years before Kali Yuga. So these scholars, and most of the dates are based in that range, right? Right. And then they say that Krishna must go at Kali Yuga, which is 3102 BC. And then they say, of course, if that is occurring, then Mahabharata. So then where does the Mahabharata war actually take place? Because what did I tell you? That Kali Yuga is already on at the time of the war. So what does it mean? Once you say Kali Yuga is already on at the time of the war, it means that these dates are all demolished straight away. Because the war is occurring where? It is occurring after Kali Yuga has actually started, right? And if you can see that Burkle crater impact Dwarka, which I have put one more arrow over there, then that particular thing is 36 years after the Mahabharata war, and that is where Sri Krishna will go. And on one side of the screen, what is obscured, I think, I don't know whether you can see it clearly, is basically that there is a 1150-year gap between that Mahabharata war and the Gautam Buddha Nirvana, which is around 1807 BC. And 1807 BC is the traditionally, a lot of scholars have come to around about 1800 BC for Gautam Buddha Nirvana. Okay, now that is not the currently scientifically, so-called scientifically accepted date, but I am saying that, I'm asserting that that is most likely the date of Gautam Buddha Nirvana, and we have proved it in various ways, right? So that debunks a lot of dates for the Mahabharata war on its own. It debunks 5561 BC, and then it debunks the traditional, so-called traditional dates of 3137, 3138, 3139, 3140, and 3143 BC completely, right? Because the war has to, if you're saying war will occur after Kali Yuga, and Kali Yuga is starting at, if you say 3102 BC is the traditional date of Kali Yuga, then this is the only way it can occur, right? What about the Namalwar Sampradaya? The great saint Namalwar is said to have been born 43 days after Sri Krishna's ascension. His traditional date, if you look it up, you will find around 3050 BC. Some say 3030 BC, some say 3040 BC, but it's around that sort of time period. This saint can therefore never be born in 5561 BC. What I'm trying to say is that when his own Sampradaya is saying that he's born around 3050 BC or whatever, he's never going to be born somewhere else, right? At a very late time frame, either way. So he's not born in 1.8 K BC and he's not born in 5.5 K BC. So both of those basically confirm that there is a 3K BCE date for the Mahabharata war. That is very important to understand. That the Mahabharata war, from tradition, as far as the tradition goes, it is going to be 3K BCE, around 3K BCE only. It is not going to be 5.5 K BCE. And mathematically also you can prove that it cannot be beyond 3200 BC using the vernal equinox, etc. You can look at some of my other work for that. Buddha Nirvana we are placing at 1807 BC. It puts a limit of 3200 BC for the Mahabharata because there is only a gap of lineage of 1150 years or so between Mahabharata war and the one who came just before Gautam Buddha, right? And that we are proving separately. Right. Now, what about the sinking of Dwarka? Well, there is a once in a millennium, once in 10,000 year event which is occurring, which is the Burkle crater, which is a 29-kilometer wide crater located in the Indian Ocean, just to the side of Madagascar. As you can see that arrow, it's dated around 2850 to 3050 BCE, and it is due to an asteroid or comet impact, right? So once you say that that is there, and by the way, that is there's a scientific paper by Abbott et al. From that point of time. You're talking about a mega tsunami which is occurring. You're not talking about 50, 60, 100 feet tsunamis. You're talking about 1,000 feet tsunami at Madagascar. Probably half that, maybe one third, maybe slightly less, that height at Dwarka at landfall, right? And that is the sinking of Dwarka, right? So this is Dwarka, okay? So that is that bit of it as well. So I am basically showing you some very, very singular events. I'm not showing you just something which is, which can occur anytime, that sort of thing, right? I'll come to this bit later, the disqualifiers for a theory and all that. I'll come a bit later. Part 1. The basics on nakshatras and Arundhati Vasishtha. Okay. Now, Arundhati Vasishtha, I just want to put 3 slides on it. Okay. So you might have heard that there is something called as the Arundhati Vasishtha observation. And what does that observation go? Yachaisha Vishruta Rajas Trailokya Sadhu Sammata Arundhati Tayapesha Vasishtha Prishtata Krita, verse 31 in chapter 2 of Bhishma Parva. Right? Right. The problem is, some people have said that this particular verse of Arundhati walking ahead of Vasishtha is occurring only in 4,500 to 11,000 BCE time frame. I am afraid this is not correct, because there is a verse which comes before this particular verse, right? This is chapter 2, verse 31. There is another verse which is coming before it. That particular verse is, I think, verse 16 or so. And that is saying that it is a nimitta matra only. So there are just some basic questions you have to ask. Is the verse a nimitta? Yes. All the verses which are coming after verse 16 are nimittas. Can a nimitta run for 6,000 years? Answer is no. Nimitta is something which is seen for short period of time. So the question of a nimitta or a omen running for 6,000 years is not there. And where does it occur in the context of the Kurukshetra war? Where does it occur? It occurs only before the war, not during or after. That is very important to understand. So if somebody is saying it runs for 6,000 years, then the problem is, then you're saying it is occurring before the war, during the war, after the war, I mean, at all times. Whereas the text is very clearly specifying it is only occurring before the war. That too as a nimitta, it is a transient observation. Now, there are 2 or 3 different meanings of the shloka. One meaning is that Arundhati or Alcor, which is a star, and Vasishtha, which is Mizar, which is another star, right? So Arundhati basically and Mizar. So normally Mizar is carrying Arundhati on the back, but here Arundhati is carrying Mizar. That is also one thing. So that is basically Prishtata Kritaha, right? So that is based on one particular thing. The other is a temporary abandonment of Arundhati, right? And that may occur when the atmospheric refraction has changed or something like that. And that can occur even if a meteor falls into the ground, right? So if a meteor falls into the ground, which in the Mahabharata, there are numerous times when that is occurring, then it means that the atmospheric refraction has changed to some extent. And the problem is that Arundhati or Alcor is a notoriously difficult star to visualize. So that particular star, Arundhati, can be temporarily, maybe it is lost sight of. So that will count as a temporary abandonment by Vasishtha of Arundhati, or of Arundhati of Vasishtha, as may be the case, right? Right. So those are the things which I'd like to say. Now, does the Arundhati Vasishtha observation qualify as an epoch? Right. This is important because people are saying that it could be an epoch, which is running from 4,500 BCE to 11,000 BCE, when Arundhati is supposedly ahead of Vasishtha. I am telling you that no, it is not, because it occurs every year. Every year. And that too, it occurs in 3,200 BC to 1,000 BC. It occurs even in 4,000 BC to 1,000 BC time frame. And it is occurring every year in June to August. And it is true, it is occurring. You can prove it beyond all doubt. Alcor is ahead of Mizar. Alcor is ahead of Mizar. You can see over here there are 3 screenshots from different years. I can show you from different millennia also. Okay. So Alcor is ahead of Mizar. Yes, but that's not a big deal. and with respect to the northern celestial pole as desired by certain authors. So this is gone. So Arundhati Vashishta observation is occurring every year. It cannot be an epoch. End of the matter. I mean, there's a lot of other things I can say about it. I have a whole presentation on Arundhati Vashishta. But, I think it is almost, it's one line in the text. And that one line in the text, we are proving that it can occur every year. So that's the end of that. Right. Now we go to the basics of nakshatras. The basics of nakshatras, I want you to go to the left-hand side of the screen, which is Kritika in pink, Rohini, Nakshatra. Now these are, I have not put them exactly where they are, but I'm giving you a rough outline of where these nakshatras are. Okay. And on Redshift, maybe if you get a chance, I will show you exactly those nakshatras in a little while, right? Then I'm showing you Pushya, which is most important nakshatra really from our point of view. Pushya and Shravana are very important. Pushya or Altar, and then Shravana or Altair. So you can see that one is near Capricorn. That one is basically near Cancer. The actual Rashis are not visible in the Mahabharata war. Actually, there's very little mention of Rashis. In fact, in these verses, there is no mention of Rashis. There's only mention of nakshatras. And then there is Jeshtha. And what is the importance of all these nakshatras? Kritika. Kritika nakshatra, the importance is, you'll see there is a eclipse icon I have put near there. And it is the place where the eclipse is occurring in the before the course of the Mahabharata war. So the eclipse occurs on Kartik Purnima, and that the importance of that Kartik Purnima is that must occur prior to the war. If you ever see anybody saying that there is a Kartik Purnima in the timeline, like there is a 5561 BC war proposal, it creates a real big problem. It creates a huge problem. Do you know what? I think everybody wants to know perhaps what this problem is. So I will tell you what the problem is. So this particular eclipse is occurring at the time of Krishna's mission of peace. So just before he reaches so he reaches Hastinapur, and before the mission of peace, before the peace talks fail, he's reaching over there, and that eclipse is over there, right? And there is another particular verse from Vanaparva, which is saying that the Pandavas are sleeping peacefully in Upaplavya at that same time. So if somebody places this particular Kartik Purnima in the war timeline, right, then what happens is that Krishna is in Hastinapur, the Kaurava army is in Kurukshetra, and Arjuna is sleeping in Upaplavya, and Karna will accompany Krishna a few days later. Bhishma is also here. So the classic joke will be, पिताश्री मुझे पांडव दिख नहीं रहे हैं रणभूमि में. क्यों? क्योंकि वो कहाँ गए? Because only the Kauravas are over here. Who are we fighting? You understand? This is the basic problem with this particular theory. So, and there is one particular astronomy theory which has made this humongous blunder, which is the 5561 BCE theory of Vartak and Sri Oak. They have made this massive blunder, which means that their army, Kaurava, if the Kaurava army is in Kurukshetra, then who are they fighting? There is nobody to fight, because the Pandava army is not there, because the Pandavas are somewhere else. Sri Krishna is somewhere else. And the Bhagavad Gita cannot occur in that theory, right? Because you need Sri Krishna and Arjun to be present in Kurukshetra for that particular thing to occur. So that is the end of that theory. And that is, I am giving you multiple points by which various theories can be demolished, right? So this Kartika Purnima is highly important, that one must check whether in your year of the war, it is actually prior to your war timeline. Otherwise, you are finished. Khatam ho jayega. Pura theory khatam ho jata hai. Next, Rohini Aldebaran, where the presence of Saturn is said to cause doom. I'll come on to that a bit later. And there is roundabout there, Rohini Aldebaran. Pushya Altar, I'm giving you a very brief, general idea of where these nakshatras are. This is for lay people. I'll show you on Redshift exactly where these things are if somebody likes. Where Balrama's pilgrimage starts 27 days after Duryodhana refuses peace, also at a Pushya nakshatra. So there are 3 Pushyas occurring in the Mahabharata. The first Pushya is of Duryodhan's refusal of peace. The second Pushya, which is occurring Balrama's pilgrimage starts. The third Pushya occurs, that is in the war timeline, right? And that is on the 4th or 5th day of the war, 4th/5th day. And the Shabda Pramana for that is Shalya Parva 33, chapter 33, verse 5-6, which I'll come to in a little while. Okay. Where does Balrama's pilgrimage end? Shravana or Altair, which is right down there, that red star which you see over there. Somewhere, it's actually slightly in that sort of area, Shravana or Altair. And it ends at 42 days, this Balrama's pilgrimage. After circling around the zodiac once, this also has to be the last day of the war. 18th day of the war has to coincide with 42nd day of the pilgrimage. You remember? From Mahabharat, which used to come, that series, that Balrama comes back on the last day. And basically that is also the last day of the war, right? He comes back on 42nd day of the pilgrimage. That is the last day of the war. Again, the Shabda Pramana is only that particular one, 33:5-6. Right. Then there's Jeshtha, which is a nakshatra. There are two real things which are associated with this particular nakshatra. The first is Vyasa Shabda Pramana, Udyoga Parva, chapter 140:18, which is basically that there is a Amavasya which is occurring in 7 days, in 7 Tithis time, he says. There is a Amavasya which is occurring at this particular nakshatra, right? Tamuhu Shakra Devatam, the nakshatra which is ruled by Shakra, Indra, which is Jeshtha, right? And so the Amavasya, or then there is a solar eclipse set to occur there. Again, it must occur prior to the war, around 18 days after Krishna leaves for Hastinapur on Revati Nakshatra, right? So these are the nakshatras which I have shown you. So just let me quickly go through those again. Kritika or Kartika, where that Purnima is got to occur much before the war. Then the Rohini Aldebaran one, which is where Saturn is said to be placed. There is a Pushya altar where there are 3 basic Pushyas, but 2 of them are associated with very significant events. One is Duryodhana's refusal of peace. 27 days later, Balrama's pilgrimage starts. And then Balrama's pilgrimage ends, that is at Shravan Nakshatra, 42 days after going through the zodiac once. And then Vyasa Shabda Pramana, which is at Jeshtha Nakshatra of a solar eclipse, Amavasya, which must occur prior to the war, right? And that is sort of how we go. On the left side, if you go, Krishna starts Revati Nakshatra, Kartik Masa, halts at Vrikasthala in the middle. 3rd day, he must reach Hastinapur. So if you say from Kartika Masa, so that is, if you're saying Revati Nakshatra, then Revati, Ashwini, Bharani. So you can either reach on a Bharani Nakshatra or max to max the Nakshatra after that. But we are showing that he reaches on a Bharani Nakshatra. That night, because we are saying there is a Kartika Purnima, so around that sort of time, there must be that Kartika Purnima which must occur, right? So quite straightforward from that point of view. The peace talks must fail, I think, approximately 6 days later, which is the first time Pushya is reached, right? By the moon. 4 days later, Krishna will ride with Karna at Purva or Uttara Falguni Nakshatra. 4 astronomy observations from Udyoga Parva will be found over there, right? And there the proclamation is made by Sri Krishna, Saptamachavi Divasat Amavasya Bhavishyati Sangrame Yujate Tasma Tamuhu Shakra Devatam, right? So after 7 days, 7 Tithis, there will be an Amavasya and the war ritual and preparations must be started. Then, so that Jeshtha Amavasya will occur at that particular point of time. Karna has also pointed out that there will be a solar eclipse which will be occurring because he has already seen a lunar eclipse occur before. And then after that, there will be another eclipse, and then the Pushya will be reached the second time when the Balrama's pilgrimage starts. So this is the sort of sequence of events. And this is a very, very difficult sequence of events to replicate in any year. Never mind, I mean, how it has happened in 3067 BC, I suspect that is the year of the war. That is why it has occurred in that year, right? No other year you will find this particular sequence occurring in exactly this manner, with those eclipses in that position and all that. Right. Part 2, I'm going on to 14th war night moonrise, which I'll cover in more detail. Part 2, 3, and 4, I'm going to cover in real detail now. Okay. for various reasons, because otherwise it will completely go like a bouncer, right? So here is what it is. Now, on the 14th war night, what actually happens? Ghatotkach is killed. And then after that, Arjun says that let us stop the war for a little period of time. And then we will start the war after the moon is rising, right? So there's a moonrise which is described in the text, right? Now, that moonrise has become the moonrise, most of the astronomers accept that it is a waning phase crescent moon. And I'm going to tell you why exactly it is a waning phase crescent moon, right? So let's join the action at verse 42 of chapter 159 of Dron Parva, critical edition. This is a little while after Karna killed Ghatotkacha with the Divyastra, which was reserved for Arjun, right? You remember that particular episode, right? And a particular verse comes over there. Tata Kumudanathena Kamini Ganda Panduna Netranandena Chandrena Mahindridi Galankrata. Right. Now, in this, Mahindri Dig Alankrata unambiguously points to the direction of Indra, which is east, and Dig Alankrata points to the direction in which the moonrise has occurred. And the moonrise is adorning the direction of the east on the 14th war night. Right. So Mahindri is east. Dig is direction. Alankrata, adorned, right? Now, Tatha Kumudanathena Kamini Ganda Panduna. Now, Kamini Ganda Panduna can mean various things, but we'll go to the next verse, which will illustrate exactly what this verse means. There's a singular verse which is coming. This is the Gita Press edition. I have just put over here verse 48 because it is having but this is the next, I think next or the next verse which is coming after verse 42 itself. And what does it say? Hara Vrishottamagatra Samadyutihi Smara Sharasana Purva Samaprabha Navavadhu Smitacharo Manohara Pravesrata Kumudakara Bandhavaha. Such a beautiful verse. But look at it. The lover of the assemblage of lilies, that's the moon, bright as the body of Mahadev's excellent bull and radiant as Kama's bow. So it's an arched bow you're talking about, as delightful as a smile on the lips of a shy bride. The smile, right? A crescent moon is coming up in the sky, right? So this is giving us some idea that this is a crescent moon. Now, what is the other reason why this must really be waning phase? Why are we saying this? So it is being compared to arched bow, bull's horns, bright smile, not a full moon. It's not a full moon by any measure. Some people have tried to make this a full moon. That's why I'm telling you all this, right? Why this is so important. It rises so late at night, right? And we know that a moon which rises late in the night basically is going to be a late waning phase moon. Is there any verse which tells us how late it rises? That is the question. Because that gives us an idea about how late in that waning phase it is rising. The problem is, a brief idea on calculation of moonrise. In the waxing phase, the moon rises during the day progressively later by 48 minutes, one muhurta that is, every day from Amavasya to Purnima, right? And in the waning phase during the night, progressively later by 48 minutes from sunset onwards, from Purnima to Amavasya, right? So it is giving you some idea over here of what is happening, right? How late is a crescent moonrise on the 14th night after Ghatotkach Vad? There is the verse. Tribhagamatra Sheshayam Ratrayam Yuddham Avartata Kurunam Pandavanam cha Samrishtanam Vishampate. Right? Look at that verse. Moonrise, it says, is so late at night. So this is when the war has started again, right? And this is in a chapter 161. And this is a little while, maybe an hour or so after that moon has risen, right? So you can say approximately 3 or 4, so 4 parts, if we assume, of the night are remaining at the time of the moonrise, right? So what does it tell us? It tells us that the moon is rising approximately 2:20 or so in the night. And if the moon is rising at that sort of time, it must be a Krishna Dashami or a Krishna Ekadashi night, Does that make sense so far? Are we happy so far, guys? Yeah.
Yes.
So this is a very, very important point, that the moon is rising so late at night, and we have shown you it is a crescent moon rise, right? That actually, it doesn't matter really. Once you prove that only 3 or 4 parts of the night are remaining, this is K10, K11, Krishna Paksha 10 or 11 moon, right? The question arises, why is it so bright, right? Why is it still retaining some element of brightness? And there is a reason for that, because of the apogee and perigee cycles of the moon, and the moon is very close to the earth at that point of time. That is what has happened. That is why it is a bright moon. But it is definitely a waning phase, not a waxing phase. And this is making a huge difference to the theories, because what happens? So around 2 a.m., 2:20 a.m., whatever, it is a Krishna Paksha 10, 11 night moon. Therefore, the last day of the war must be Amavasya or very close to it. And we can show that the sun is rising after that. After those verses, it says that the sun is rising in the sky, and then they stop for doing Sandhya Vandana. So that means definitely there's no question that this is not going to be waxing phase by any chance, right? So this is a late waning phase crescent moon, and this has huge implications, because the last day of the war therefore becomes Amavasya, right? It has to be Amavasya. So what I am showing, that the 14th war night moonrise is a crescent moon. It is in the eastern part of the sky. That's very important, because if it is in some other part of the sky, I cannot prove what I'm saying. It is in the eastern part of the sky, means it's the rising, you see, and it is occurring very late at night. Therefore, it's a late waning phase of the moon, right? Now, there are some people who have said, no, Pandit, you are wrong. How can it be? It must be a full moon. How can it be like this? However, I am able to prove that that is not the case, right? Let me show you why. There is a word which is occurring in verse 25 called punaha. And one or two people have used that verse punaha. So tato vinidra vishrantas chandramas sudate punaha. Right? So what they're saying is the moon has risen again. So moon only rises once, we all know that. But they are using this verse to say that the moon has risen for the second time, or the moon is being seen now, right? 8 hours later or whatever. So the proponents of the Amavasya start to the war, who are saying that the moon basically must be 14th war moon, must be a full moon or close to it, are saying that this particular moonrise is a full moon. Okay. And they are using this verse to say that the moon is being seen again after it had risen at some point in the evening. Now it is being seen again. The first demolition point for that particular point which they are trying to make, the observation which I am making in return, is that there is no mention of that moon before that at all, right? So the question of a previous moonrise is not arising, number one. Number two is an even more powerful point. You see, there is one or two other things which are occurring over here. What I'll show you now is that if you were to go and stand outside and you actually looked on a Shukla Chaturdashi or on a Purnima, if you went and stood somewhere outside and looked at the moonrise, and that would be around in the evening, just before sunset, right? Around 5:12 in the evening, it will rise. And then you wait there. You just keep waiting there. And 8 hours later, you just sit there, have some coffee, read some books, whatever you want. 8 hours later, you observe where that moon will be. And the moon will have gone over your head, and it will be now in the western part of the sky. Do you see what the problem is? So this moon we are saying is in the eastern part of the sky. Tata kumudanathena kamini ganda panduna netranandena chandrena mahendri dig alangarta. This is the eastern sky moonrise. So the chance of this being anything other than a rising, waning phase, late crescent moon, gone. What impact does that have? What are the implications of this? Implication is that the 18th war day, 4 days later, is an Amavasya. The first war day is around Shukla Trayodashi. It could be Shukla Chaturdashi if one Kshaya, Divas or something, some Tithi is taken away. War can never begin on Amavasya. Therefore, 5561 BCE, proponent Shri Vartak, Shri Oak, 3163 BCE, Shri Arya, 3143 BCE, Dr. Raja, 1793 BCE, Shri Bhatnagar. War proposals debunked completely. On Tithis and moon phases alone, I am showing you that those are wrong because they have proposed an Amavasya start to the war, which I am showing you clearly is an impossibility from any point of view. It is an impossibility. It cannot occur. Okay. So now on multiple points, of course, 5561 BC is getting demolished on, as you have seen already, on multiple points. It is going. Okay. And it is very straightforward. This is not some, what do you call it? This is not being clever by half. What is the other problem which occurs? If you now say, okay, Pandit, I grant you that 14th war night moonrise is waning phase. I agree. But it doesn't fit my theory. I'm going to ignore it. It is a conflicting observation. Suppose somebody says that, which can happen. No? In science, that's what people do. It's a conflicting observation. I'm going to take it to one side. I'll tell you what happens. The entire moon phase for the year goes wrong. The start of the war becomes wrong. The Tithi. The end of the war, Tithi, becomes wrong. Balrama's pilgrimage, start and end, becomes wrong. Tithis. Bhishma Moksha start date goes wrong. Bhishma Moksha timeline becomes wrong. All that goes wrong. That's why I'm saying that you can debunk those four theories just on this basis. I'm going to show you more and more, of course. I'm showing you why that is a waning phase moonrise. And that is December 8, 9, 3067 BCE in our particular war theory, right? In 3067 BCE war theory. It's absolutely fitting, tanto tant, perfect, right? Because the timelines of the war and pilgrimage are interlinked, as we have already shown you, right? Because 18 days of the war, 42 days of the pilgrimage must come together on the last day of the war, right? Part 3, Balrama's pilgrimage nakshatras, right? We have a tithi for the 18th war day, which I just showed you, which is Amavasya, right? Can we fix a nakshatra for the 18th war day? Answer, yes, it is a Shravan nakshatra. Why? Chatvarincha dahanyadya dvechame nrisatasya vai pushyena samprayatosmi shravane punaragata. Yeah. So you got a Shravana nakshatra coming on the last day of the war. Yeah. Does it make sense? Right. When Balrama's pilgrimage ends at 42 days after circling round the zodiac once, is also the last war day. The Shabda Pramana of Vyasa, verse 5-6, Pushyena samprayatosmi shravane punaragataha. Starting on a Pushya, I must come back on a Shravana nakshatra. So as simple as that. Shishya orve gada yuddham drishto kamosmi madhava. Now, let us come to the next interesting point. What some astronomers have done, a lot of them actually, they have said, well, Pandit, this is too difficult for us. We can't start on Pushya and end on Shravana. So what we'll do? We'll start on Shravana and end on Pushya. What difference it makes? क्या फर्क पड़ता है? कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. आप अपना लगे रहो, हम हमारी बनाएंगे theory. So I'll tell you what the problem is that with that particular hypothesis. Most of you may be knowing, if you ever open an advertisement on a Pushya Nakshatra, what does it say? On a Guru Pushya especially, it will say, buy gold. You remember? In the newspapers, even today it comes. You open Twitter, there will be a lot of astrologers, they will say, buy gold, buy this, buy that. You might be remembering, right? So, Pushya Nakshatra is the most auspicious nakshatra of the Hindu zodiac. Balarama is the brother of Sri Krishna. He's well aware of all these teachings, right? If he wants to start on a pilgrimage, there's a reason he's starting on a Pushya. There is a reason why Duryodhan is causing 27 days before that, why he's saying that he refuses the peace talks. Does it make sense what I'm saying? Yeah. Pushya Nakshatra is the most auspicious nakshatra of the zodiac. So Pushyena Samprayatosmi, he has to start on a Pushya. I'll tell you another amazing fact, which a lot of people may or may not know. The fact is that late Pandit Hardeo Shastriji, one of the most famous astrologers of modern India, who was consulted by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru when he wanted to know what date we should have independence in that particular very small period was given, right? You know why that Independence Day was fixed at 15th and why it is one day later? Because that Independence Day is a Pushya Nakshatra. Not only a Pushya Nakshatra, it is a Guruvar. It is a Guru Pushya. Now it makes sense, starts to make sense to you. There's a long unbroken tradition of India which is telling you what is actually happening, right? So why that Pushya Nakshatra is so important? Why is it so important to have this reference correct? It is the only Shabda Pramana of Vyasa for the nakshatra of the last day of the pilgrimage and war timelines. If you fail this, you fail 3 timelines completely. You fail the moon phases, you fail the nakshatras. In fact, you fail the theory, to be honest, right? But a lot of people have done this because it's very, very difficult again to do. A lot of people have done this sort of thing, ulta. You know, it's like Usain Bolt starting at the finish line and trying to run to the start line, while all the other runners are running in the opposite direction, you know, to change the nakshatras of start and finish. So there's also the start of Bhishma Moksha from those timelines. More importantly, once you say Shravana Nakshatra is the last day of the war, the reverse count of nakshatras will give you the nakshatra of the first day of the war. That's how important that is. So if you fail that, then it means your entire war timeline is gone, pilgrimage timeline is gone, Bhishma Moksha timeline is gone, theory gaya. Agreed? Happy everybody? So the reverse count of 18 days nakshatras from Shravana gives either Rohini or Mrigashira nakshatra, which must be your first day. It's as simple as that. And you can in fact reverse count nakshatra by nakshatra. You can sort of try and have a reverse count back on nakshatra of each day of the war. And you can analyze and check which nakshatra will fit. Like for example, when Bhishma is falling in the 10th day of the battle, you can actually see, you can check my book. It will be a Hasta Nakshatra because he's the ruler of Hastinapur. It's as simple as that. And all those things will fit perfectly, right? So I have basically told you now that 18th war day is a Shravana Nakshatra and a Amavasya. So these two things have to coincide, right? And the first war day will therefore become Shukla Trayodashi or Shukla Chaturdashi, it can be. It has to be close to a full moon. And the first day of the war, the nakshatra, what it must be, it has to be Rohini or it has to be Mrigashira, nothing else. And there is your x-axis and y-axis. X-axis, Pushya 2, which is the second Pushya, first Pushya being Duryodhan's refusal of peace. Pilgrimage starts on a Pushya nakshatra, ends on a Shravana nakshatra. That is your 42-day pilgrimage. And on the y-axis is your 18 days of the war. War begins near full moon, cannot begin on Amavasya. Begins near a full moon, cannot begin on Amavasya. 14th night, late night, waning phase, crescent moonrise must occur. 18 days of the war will be Shravan Nakshatra and Amavasya. War ends on or near an Amavasya. So your war and pilgrimage timelines, you cannot fail just one. You will fail 3 timelines if you fail it. Because the fall of Bhishma is within that particular war timeline. So you will fail not only nakshatra time, you will not only fail the pilgrimage timeline, you will fail the war timeline and you fail Bhishma Moksha timeline. All 3 timelines are intimately linked. So that is that one, right? Very, very clear. So can we corroborate it? That is the next question. It's all very well saying this should be like this and this is in the text, but what about your theory, Dr. Pandit? If you go to astronomyofindia.wordpress.com, you can find that particular thing corroborated in 3067 BC by 2 different methods. I'll show you over here. So November 1, 3067 BC, day 1 Tirth Yatra, moon at Pushya, Altarf. You can see very clearly over here. Can you see the moon? And can you see Altarf? Right? Very, very clear. Right? And that is extremely clear. 1st November 3067 BC. I'm showing you at 1420, but it is there from around 6 or 7 in the morning itself, right? 42nd day of the pilgrimage, 18th day of the war, December 12th, 3067 BCE. I'm showing you the Tirth Yatra when Balram is returning. I'm showing you very clearly over here. Can you see the moon over there? Very clear. Algedi, Altair, you can see Shravana Nakshatra near Capricorn, gone, done. 42 days, 18th day of the war, Shravana Nakshatra, Pushena Samprayatosmi Shravane Punaragataha. And by the way, that particular day, November 1, 3067 BCE, let me try and see if I can do that for you. And let me just enlarge that as much as I can. And if I enlarge and enlarge and enlarge, let me see if I can enlarge it for you. If I can enlarge it, can you see it is a Thursday over there? Can you see 1/11/3067 BCE? This is on Cyber Sky, right? So I just got it because this shows me the date as well, right? So therein you go. That it's proved conclusively, right? Let me again go back to play the slideshow. So you can see it very clearly, Thursday over there. I'll go back over here, right? So Balrama's pilgrimage, we are proving exact sequence, right? He starts on a Pushya, he comes back on a Shravana Nakshatra day. The Shravana Nakshatra day is also the 18th day of the war. It is also an Amavasya. And why am I saying it is an Amavasya? Can you see over here the moon? Where it says moon, can you see it's a black disk, very small black disk you can sort of see. If anybody wants, I am more than happy to, show you all those screenshots over here. But if you want, I can again do the same thing over here with this. And let me come over here. Let me do that. Bring to front. And can you see over here this black disk, which is the moon, basically. It is Amavasya moon, right? So let me again do that. Let me play. Right. So I've already told you why the pilgrimage has to start on a Pushya, right? So the significance of Pushya Nakshatra is that it's the most auspicious nakshatra of the Hindu zodiac. It is India's Independence Day nakshatra for that particular, day. It is considered on a Guruvar to absolutely absolve the Tithi doshas. All the doshas are absolved on that particular day. It's a very rigorous criteria which I am showing you. And this is the way it goes. Can you see over here from the yellow star, that is the Pushya 2, which is Balrama's Pushya. Going around the zodiac, it must go. Then comes to Pushya 3, which is hidden in the war timeline. Can you see it clearly? And then it goes all the way down to Shravana Nakshatra, where it finishes. So that particular Pushya, November 1st, 3067 BC, all the way around, it goes. I think it's around 20. Pushya 3 is 28th of October or something like that. 3067 BC, 28, 29 October. And then it comes down to 12 December, 3067 BC. And I am showing you the lunar phases all across completely from the time Balrama has left the Pandavas, October 13th, first quarter moon, October 21st, like that, all the way right up to the end of the war, right? This will be there for perusal if you like. That is how I can show it in that particular manner also. And each of these nakshatras, therefore, because I already told you that you can reverse count the nakshatras. Once you know what is the nakshatra for the last day of the war, you can reverse count. But this is how you can actually prove it if you actually know that this is occurring. So this is how it goes. Moon at Pushya Nakshatra to moon at Shravana Nakshatra in 42 days. Does it make sense? Right? And that is how Balrama goes. Chatvarimshaddaha nadya dvechame nisatasya vai pushyena samprayatosmi shravane punaragataha shishyorve gata yuddham drishtu kamosmi madhava. I am very fond. I want to see the Gada Yuddha between my two star pupils. And that is the rigorous condition of Balrama's pilgrimage at 42 days. Moon at Pushya to Amavasya, moon at Shravana. It must go. This is very difficult to prove. Nobody else is able to do it. No other theory is able to come anywhere near it, right? And one sec, right? And so the war timeline and the pilgrimage timeline are synchronizing on the 18th day of the war. You can see it over here also. You see that black disk, which is the Amavasya moon, which has been shown on redshift now this time, right? So this is December 12th, 3067 BCE. Now, what happens if you ignore Balrama's pilgrimage start and end nakshatras? Entire moon phase for centuries goes wrong. Start nakshatra of the war becomes wrong. End nakshatra of the war becomes wrong. Start of Balrama's pilgrimage wrong. End nakshatra of Balrama's pilgrimage wrong. Bhishma Moksha start date based on the war timeline, so that also becomes wrong. Basically, your theory is debunked if you fail these criteria. So now I'm showing you the second reason, third reason, fourth reason why some of these particular things are theories are failing. There is also one more very important thing. The war can never start on Amavasya. That means the solar eclipse, which can only occur on Amavasya, therefore solar eclipse cannot occur on first day of the war. And lunar eclipse cannot occur on 15th day of the war. So you can exclude 5561 BC, 3163 BC, 3143 BC, 1793 BC from the list of possible dates of Mahabharata war. Because they start war on Amavasya and the nakshatras are interchanged. They have flipped the nakshatras, right? So this is what has happened, that the person, whoever who has done that, they will not be aware of the rich Jyotisha tradition of India, where Pushya, especially on Guruvar, is taken as the start of all auspicious events. So you can exclude those dates from possible dates of Mahabharata war. So not only have they reversed the nakshatras, but you're also talking about the war start tithi and war end tithi will be wrong in those particular things, right? In those particular dates. Right. So Kartik Purnima, what is the secret of Kartik Purnima? It must occur before the war. What is the secret of the 14th night moonrise? It must be late waning phase moonrise. What is the secret of Balrama's pilgrimage? It must start on a Pushya and end on a Shravana, and the last day of the war must be Amavasya or close to it. All these things are really, really important, because people don't follow any of those things and they just make there's a theory. They will have a theory, but unfortunately those things will be wrong in those theories. So very important to understand. What about slow moving planets? Actually, some people will say, whatever you have said so far, Manish, it's okay, it's fine. But what about for the year of the war, you're really talking about the slow moving planets. And I'll come to Saturn first, because if you fail Saturn, you are not going to be anywhere near the war date, right? It's as simple as that. There are only 4 verses for Saturn. Prajavatyam hi nakshatram grahas tikshno mahadyutihi shaneshchara pidayati pidayan praninodikam. Okay. That is from Udyoga Parva. Rohini pidayan nesham sthito rajan shaneshchara vyavrattam lakshma somasya bhavishyati mahatmayam. Prajavatyam hi nakshatram. The nakshatra owned by Prajapati, Rohini nakshatra. Grahas tikshno mahadyutihi. Shaneshchara, Shani, Dev. Today is also Saturday. Pidayati is hurting. The nakshatra is causing it pida. Pidayan praninodikam. And the second verse, Rohinim pidayan nesham sthito rajan shaneshchara. Saturn is sthita at Rohini. Actually, that is the meaning of that particular verse. Not just that it's causing pida to it, but that it is stationed over there. This is the only verse which is actually giving you that it is over there, that the Saturn is in that position, right? The rest of the things are talking about pida, etc. If you look at all the other verses, they are talking about pida. And also, by the way, one interesting thing which I am going to show you now, these first two observations are from Udyoga Parva, particular chapter, Bhishma Parva, chapter 2. Now, these next 2 observations are rendered weak. Why? Because they are from the same chapter, Bhishma chapter 3, but occurring within few verses of each other. I think this is verse 13 and that is verse 25, right? So the problem with that is, and plus this particular third verse which is there, Bhagyam nakshatram akramya surya putrena pidyate, it doesn't say Saturn explicitly. And Surya Putra, by the way, can mean a lot of things. Surya Putra, there is an entire classification of comets based on sons of the fathers. Brihad Samhita also refers to those sort of things, right? And the sentence structure also is odd. So it could be a comet. And the other one, Vishakhayo Samipastho, I will go in more detail in a moment. How to interpret the word Pida caused by Saturn to Rohini? Brihad Samhita, I am quoting the verse, and I am quoting the exact whatever is given as even their translation, which is not perfect, but it is adequate. A lunar mansion, a nakshatra, is said to be hurt when occupied by Sun or Saturn, etc., etc. That is why Pida is basically to a nakshatra is not the same as Rashi Pida. Ki bhai, you have got Vrishab Rashi and you are having Saturn, which is in what do you call, in Vrishchik Rashi, and that is aspecting your Rashi. So that is not what we are talking over here, because there's no mention of a Rashi anywhere there. If you look over there in these 4 verses, nowhere a Rashi is mentioned. People confuse it. People confuse Rohini Nakshatra with Vrishab Rashi. Please don't do that. That is not mentioned over there anytime, right? In fact, if you ask all the scholars, all the scientists, they will tell you, well, it is a nakshatra only we are talking about. And nakshatra pida is a very, very specific term. And there are only 2 places nakshatra pida is properly mentioned. One is in Brihad Samhita. The other place it is mentioned is in Sarvatobhadra Chakra, which I'll come to in a moment, right? So Saturn must occupy Rohini to cause it pida, according to Brihad Samhita. Now the question you ask, how many world wars have started with Saturn at Rohini? Or what sort of events have occurred with Saturn at Rohini? And what is the importance of Saturn at Rohini to Indian Jyotish? Saturn at Rohini has got legendary status. If you ask any Jyotishi, Rohini Saturn, he will tell you, Hare Bapre, Rohini Saturn, what is that? That is a very, very dangerous situation. We have got Pandit Katti with us, who is one of the famous astrologers also. So he can go on a bit about that later when we have a discussion. Now, what all has occurred? I'm going to show you some very interesting facts. The Battle of Stalingrad, you must be remembering. One of the worst battles which has ever taken place in the last 100 years is the Battle of Stalingrad, right? One of the most deadly battles, right? Saturn is about to pierce Rohini. Can you see between the fork? Can you see the fork basically of that Aldebaran Heights? And there you have got Saturn. It's about to pierce Rohini in July 1942, right? And a lunar mansion is hurt when occupied by Saturn, right? Nakshatra. World War I and some part of it. World War II, nearly, such a significant portion of it. Bangladesh genocide. Bangladesh genocide was one of the worst events which has occurred. 9/11 and Bangladesh genocide almost to the week, and even World War II almost to the week. And now coming in 2030 and 2031, this particular Rohini Pida Nesham Sthito Rajan Shaneshchara, coming in 2030-31. A lot of those conditions will be coming in that particular year. Now, why am I ignoring verse 325 taken by quite a few researchers? And what is that verse? Graho tamrarana shikhau prajwalita sthito saptarishi udaranam samachchadya vai prabham. There is a verse which is given for Samvatsarasthayano cha graha prajwalita vubho Vishakhayo samipastho Brihaspati Shaneshwara. So it says that Jupiter and Saturn are both stationed at Vishakha or near Vishakha. Vishakha samipastho means near, not equidistant. So important to realize. And they are there for roughly a year, which itself disqualifies it. How can Jupiter and Saturn be stationed near just one nakshatra for a complete year? It is almost impossible because they are not moving at that gati, right? The verse previous to it is actually telling us what is the situation, because it is telling us that those 2 grahas, graho tamra aruna shikhau, it says that this so-called what we are calling Jupiter Saturn have got shikhas. Can Jupiter and Saturn have shikhas? Can any graha have shikhas? Can any planet have shikhas rather? So tamra aruna shikhau prajwalita viva sthito, it is ignited or glowing luminously. And Saptarishi Udaranam Samochchadya Brahmam, either penetrating or obscuring the Saptarishis. Can Jupiter or Saturn ever do that? No, it is not possible. Do you know how far from Vishakha, from the ecliptic at Vishakha, how far Saptarishis are? So how can this ever happen, right? So therefore, there must be comets who are somewhere near Vishaka for a year and who have obscured, penetrated the Saptarishis, whatever they may be, but they have to be comets. No planet can obscure or penetrate the Saptarishis, right? I'll again try with the redshift to show you these 2 points a little later. So we are basically we are able to cancel those 2 verses. They are anyway very weak. They are occurring within 2 verses of few verses of each other. Those last 2 verses, verse 14 and verse 25, right? And those 2 verses are basically pointing to contradictory positions. And one of them is pointing to a possibility of a Grahaputra, which means that it could be a comet anyway. And the other one is saying explicitly the verse before that it has got a Shikha. There's 2 grahas, grahas have got Shikhas and are obscuring the Saptarishis. So they've got to be comets. So Rohini Pide Nesham Sthito Rajan Shanesha, Saturn must be at Rohini. And guess, now I wanted to guess how many war theories out of 110 war theories have taken Saturn at Rohini in their war theories. Anybody want to venture a guess? Exactly 0, only 1. Only 3067 BC has done this. And there's a reason for it. Because that is the only theory which has not relied on assumptions. 3067 BC is the only theory not relying on assumptions. This could be there, that could be somewhere else. No. We are basically taking the grahas into consideration. So Saturn must be at Rohini. Now, what about the position of Mars? There are only 2 verses. The first verse I'm going to deal with in just a moment, because that first verse, Maghvas Svangarako Vakra Shravanaecha Brahaspati, that particular verse could be taken as a verse for Jupiter as well. But what is the reason that that verse should be ignored? What is the problem with that verse? What is the issue with it? Which I'll show you in a moment. There are only 2 verses for Mars anyway. 2 verses which are properly referring to Mars. And there are 2 verses now remaining for Jupiter, because we have dealt with 1 verse already. And one of those verses is this first verse. Sena Rishi Shivam Ghoram Karishyati Mahagraha Magvasvangarko Vakra Shravnecha Brahaspati. You know, it took me 6 months before I realized. And Dr. Achar had already written it somewhere, but I didn't read that book at that particular point of time. And it took me 6 months. I was pondering upon this verse, and one day it struck me. You know what the problem with this verse is? Let me show you. Can Mars be retrograde? Magha Sangarako Vakra Angaraka Mars, Magha Nakshatra Regulus, Vakraha retrograde, Shravana, which I already showed you, Altair, Cha Brahaspati. Can Mars be retrograde at Magha at the same time as Jupiter in Shravana? That is what the verse is saying. Is in one line it is saying that Mars is retrograde at Magha at the same time as Jupiter in Shravana. Is it possible? Is it possible? It is not possible. Astronomy wise, it is impossible, because in the same verse, these are 2 outer planets. So when they are retrograde, the sun has to be over 140 degrees away from it. So the sun, and they are in opposite parts of the zodiac, roughly. So if you say Mars is retrograde at Shravana, then the sun has to be opposite in one direction. In one direction, if you say Brahaspati or Guru is retrograde at Shravana, so Magha Sangarako Vakra. If Mars you say is retrograde at Magha, then then sun is in opposite direction. And if you say Jupiter is retrograde at Shravana, then sun is in the opposite direction. So sun is in 2 opposite directions in the same verse, in 2 separate parts of the zodiac at the same time. Is it possible? Of course it is not possible. We know. They are required, and it is in the same verse. You see, had they been 2-3 verses apart or 2 chapters apart or something, I would have considered maybe they have seen it in different parts of the epic or something like that. But no, it's the same verse. Now, it took me a long time to understand what this is, because in 3067 BC, when you actually look for it, you'll find amazingly that there are 2 comets which go Vakra. And it took me a long time to realize that comets also can go in Vakragati. In fact, it is a known phenomenon. So that is the that is the answer to that particular verse. And Dr. Acharya had already actually solved it, but I never asked him at that particular point of time. But it took me a long time to realize what's the answer to that. And this is from the astronomy point of view, otherwise it's an impossibility. And we have actually resolved this verse. It's not actually Soho and Blancpain. Soho and Blancpain is for the other two comets. It is actually, it's there in my book anyway. It's Gun and one other comet, and Marie something or the other. And I am ignoring this verse because I've already explained it, that it is two ignited blazing grahas with shikhas, and that is Soho and Blancpain, which I've mentioned a bit earlier. Right. So the only verse which now survives our relentless scrutiny is this particular verse. And this creates a further problem, this particular verse. Brahaspati Rohinim Samprapidya. My God. I looked at this and I learned astrology at the age of around 23 or so, right? And I'd been learning Western astrology from when I was maybe 7 or 8 or 10, something like that, right? Because of my mother. And I gave up Western astrology completely when I was a bit older. But Brahaspati Rohinim Samprapidya. Brahaspati Guru is causing Pida to Rohini. Are Bapre. Now you're in a quandary. Have you ever even heard of Brahaspati causing Pida to Rohini? Yes, I had, but it didn't strike me at that point of time. And that particular thing is found in a particular thing called as the Sarvatobhadra Chakra only. Pida to Rohini is only caused basically by whatever it is from a particular lunar mansion. And how it is caused, let me try and show you. There you go. So if you look over here at the top, can you see something where there's a yellow box over there called Ashwi? Let me try and do it like this. Can you see this yellow box over here? And this is a green box where it is saying Rohini. And from here, from this Ashwini, can you see that Jupiter is over here? And from this over here, it is actually, this is on the 17th day of the war, this particular observation. So it has to fit perfectly. And it is. And it is in Gandanta. That is the other problem. Now, Gandanta is a difficult thing to explain like this, but it is basically the junction between fire and water signs, right? And it is not considered a good position at all for any graha. So that is the thing. So that Jupiter is in Gandanta, and that particular thing is causing Pida in these three directions only, right? And so here is where we are saying basically that there is a Pida to Rohini, right? Does it make sense now? Why there should be Pida to Rohini? So Saturn basically we are proving from the Brihad Samhita point of view, as well as the point that it is Sthito Rajan Chaneshwara. So we don't really need to prove anything more from that point of view. And Saturn at Rohini is well known as a cause of doom. And Jupiter we are proving now is causing Pida to Rohini by Sarvatobhadra Chakra. And it's very difficult to prove this, by the way. It's an extremely difficult thing. And to just, 1 second. So let me just play the slideshow again. Right. And what is the situation in 5561 BC, which is one of the other war proposals? And you can see over here that I have pointed out Rohini. Saturn is nowhere near there. Saturn is also got no chance of afflicting Rohini from anywhere else also. And from Ashwini, where, it has to be in only 1 or 2 places, it can be Jupiter. Jupiter is nowhere near there either. And in fact, that is the case for vast majority of the war proposals. They are all failing all these criteria, right? Now, the next thing which I want to point out is Mars retrogression, because there's one verse which survives, which is this verse, Kritva, the second verse, Kritva Changarako Vakram Jesthayam Madhusudana, verse number 8, which is told by Karna to Krishna. Anuradham prarthayate maitram samsha mayanniva. So this Mars has got to go retrograde sometime in the past, basically, and it has got to go retrograde at the, so Karna has said he has already observed this, right, happening. And we are saying that this cannot happen at that point of time for various reasons, but it can happen before. So Mars retrogression has to be there at the time of the war, because both the verses are talking about Mars retrogression anyway. So Mars has to be retrograde. And let me show you something very interesting. So Mars retrogression we are showing near Jyeshtha, just before Jyeshtha, Anuradha. Near Antares is associated with one of the worst royal family disasters to affect the Kuru Vansh. Because Mars is the action of the crown prince, Duryodhan. The actions of the crown prince Duryodhan in destroying his own race. And in this case, it's Duryodhan personified, is basically this Kritva Changaroko Vakram Jyeshtaya Madhusudana, right? And this is described by Karna to Krishna, centered around just before Antares. This is very, very interesting because this is again something very, very difficult to prove. Now, you may say, well, Pandit, is there anything like this which has occurred in the recent past? Let me show you something. 2001, Mars retrogression near Antares, 2001. Worst royal family disasters of the century. You know what this was? You remember that Crown Prince of Nepal who picked up a machine gun and he shot dead the family? That. Look at that movement. Exact movement has occurred in that particular point, when exactly at that point when he has shot dead his entire family, right? It is similar, it is not identical, but it is similar to that, centered around Antares, the action of the crown prince in destroying his own family. Here it is a directly he has done it. Over there it is slightly more indirect, right? So this is just to show that, well, this particular motion is known in the Indian Jyotish Shastra for causing these sort of.
What was the date of the Nepal tragedy? Where the same, you say, what was the date?
Let me try and tell you. Give me 1 second.
You said that Nepal, the same thing happened. What was it?
Exactly. Just give me one. Is it because this was in June? I have got redshift on here, so we can actually see the retrograde motion in a moment. Give me 1 second.
So you mean to say Duryodhan had a Mars retrograde, and that's why he was behaving the way he was behaving?
Well, now that I don't know. But what I'm saying is that Kritva Changarako Vakram Jyesthaya Madhusudana, that particular movement of Mars is considered as extremely harmful. And the action, so Mars is the crown prince of Indian Jyotish. You see? So the actions of a crown prince will destroy his own family is the idea behind that particular thing. Now, when is it occurred? I will tell you. Nepal.
2001, you said, no?
Yeah. Crown Prince.
No, I was just asking an approximate date.
It was 1st June 2001. 1st June 2001.
Yeah. And if you want, we can just stop the session for now. And I can show you on Redshift that particular motion if you're interested. There is an interest in that because I've got the software on the computer anyway. 1 second. Let me just stop the share for a moment. Let me bring up Redshift, right? And let me share the screen again. And let me go to Redshift and share. And let us go to 2001 and let's go to June 06, right? And let's go to 01, right? Let me bring it back over here. Can you see the screen? Yeah. Happy? Yeah, very interesting all this. I used to, in 2006 and 7 and all.
This was more or less the same during the time of that war. I mean, that particular day.
Quite similar to what it has happened. What has happened? See, Mars retrogression at around Antares has only occurred, I think, 19 times in the last 5,000 years. Okay, it is a very rare event. It's a rare event, right? Only 19 times. Out of that, I think 119 or 120 times you got Saturn at Aldebaran, which is Rohini. That has occurred. So the two particular things occurring together is a very, very rare phenomenon. It's a very rare phenomenon. This is a Vakragati, you see. Vakragati is occurring. It's a very rare phenomenon. Just give me 1 second. I will just try and play it. Let me lock it. And then hopefully I'll be able to play it in a moment. Right. So
So it is the crown prince or the main person. If they have a retrograde in that chart, then it sort of has an influence.
No. Look, that I am not going into at all. But I am showing you an association of the movement in the sky. I don't like causative.
Okay.
I like to say that it is a association only rather than a causation. Because I am not a fatalist. You see, that's the thing. I hate fatalistic. Being a fatalist is Jijit knows me very well that I don't like fatalism at all.
Basically, he is talking about association.
I understand.
Can you see the
same
retrogression
phenomena
now?
happened then, and the same phenomena happened when Nepal incident happened.
Right. And let me just go here, you see, and show you what is happening here. Okay. 1 second. Yeah. Can you see that over there? 1 second.
So is there any further, when is this situation likely to happen again in the near future? Is it possible?
I'll tell you 1 second. So just look at that. Can you see the retrogression? This is the Vakragati actually. Can you see the Vakragati? And see how close to that June 1st it is occurring. Let me just show you again. Okay. Let me go back over here. Right. Now I'm going to go from May 8th. I'm going to go forward. Right. Now just see. Can you see? It is starting to go retrograde. March 22nd, 23rd, like that. And now going in the Vakra direction. And that disaster has occurred on June 1st. Do you remember?
Yeah.
That is how close we are getting over here within a space of 8 or 9 or 10 days. And this is my observation again, which you'll find a paper by Narasimha Rao on it, who is, one of my very close friends. You'll find a paper by him on this particular topic of retrograde planets and the point of retrogression when it is what you are asking about, and when it is when that thing in the sky is very, very close to whatever is happening in your own chart, then the event will occur usually within approximately a month either side of that event. When it is occurring anyway. But this is an interesting thing. Now when is the retrogression of Mars is fine, but we talked about Bangladesh, for example. Now in 2030, let me show you what is happening. So I'm going to put my cursor on Aldebaran and I'm going to lock it. And then I'm going to go to, let's say, somewhere like this. And can you see that Saturn is starting to approach? Can you see? And it is going to approach. Yeah. And we'll see, probably it may come right through. You see, the thing is, if it starts to go past that fork, you see, that is actually the point at which you will see a lot of these events occurring. Now, this is August. And can you see it's coming so close there? And I think it will go retrograde over there. Do you see what I mean? It will go the opposite direction now. So around about August, September of 2030, that is that movement of Saturn, which is very, very close to Aldebaran. And that is
what is the major event you feel a world event can happen?
Yeah, so it is my doubt, shall we say, because I don't like fatalism.
Assumption.
Not assumption. I think it is a probability that there will be some kind of world-changing event which will occur in that 2 years of that.
Yeah, but in which part of the world? Any idea?
Oh, I'm sure India will be involved in that. I'm pretty certain. I think there is no question about it.
How does it show for India? I mean, will India have?
I am always a great believer that everything good should happen to India. So I'll never say that never with my own tongue I will say anything bad should happen to it. But unfortunately, from whatever we have seen earlier, there's a possibility there will be a war of some sort. See, some stage during that 2 years, there may be some sort of real big warlike event. So we'll see anyway. 2030 August or thereabouts. Yeah. In this, I have not shown Bhishma Moksha yet, and I think Mission Away. But I suspect, I don't know. We have gone on from 4 o'clock. What is it? What is the time?
Aryan, how are we on time? Because we have a lot of questions.
So I'll go for the questions, I think. That is much better.
Let's go for the questions.
We do have a lot of questions in the chat.
Right. So let's go for the questions.
Has RC joined?
Yes, RC is back. And
so RC, because he has some challenges at home, so I said you ask your questions and then...
and we have got Pandit Katti over here also.
How nice. Panditji, namaskar. Thank you for joining. I've heard so much about you from Dr. Pandit. It's a pleasure that a renowned astrologer is with us. And so we have some interesting questions.
Namaste. Thank you.
Namaste. Aryan, can we ask RC to do, because he has some challenge, he says he has.
Yes, please, RC, go ahead. Then we have questions from Krishnaji also.
And and you also, me also.
I have only one question.
No,
I should let this for
I have three questions. One, my Indraprastha is not yet answered.
we're going to
my topic I gave you Indraprastha and the
I will come to it as well.
Okay.
I will come to it.
Let RC, because RC has some, Mr. Ranjit has some challenges, so he wants to ask a few questions and then
Yes.
Panditji,
yes.
My first question is, मैं अपना बस खोल देता हूँ chat. I think my questions are in the chat.
It's on your
first.
Let me check.
My first question is, ये जो परीक्षित और कलयुग का डायलॉग हुआ था, and जिसको कहा गया है कि जब परीक्षित कलयुग से मिला, वो जब मरा, so can we say that was the actual time when Kaliyug started, but उससे जो पहले जितना भी हुआ है war और war से पहले, that could be a shadow period? Like,
right. Now, wonderful question. Right. The Mahabharata evidence, Praptam Kaliyugam Vidhi Pratidnyam Pandavasya cha. Okay. It is not saying it is a Sandhya Kal over there. The Sandhya Kal is before. There are verses which are occurring much earlier, which are talking about Sandhya Kal. Right. It may come to me by the end of the thing. Antare chaiva samprapte kali dwaparayor bhut samantake panchake tirtham Kuru Pandava senayoho. That is the verse you are talking about. You see, the verse which you are talking about is a verse which is occurring earlier, and which is saying that is a Sandhya Kal of Kali and Dwapar. In between Kali and Dwapar, when the Mahabharata war is to be fought. Antare chaiva samprapte kali dwaparayor bhut. It's one of Dr. Achar's favorite verses. That's why I know it. Now, the question which you are asking, this Parikshit and Kaliyuga, whether Kaliyuga is starting actually over there. I'll tell you what the issue is. You see, when Sri Krishna is there, Sri Krishna is saying to Balarama very clearly, Kaliyuga has already started. So I think we have to take that as the Pratyaksha Praman that Kaliyuga has started. But from the viewpoint of a faithful person, of a person of faith, of person having faith in Sri Krishna, I will say that because Sri Krishna is on earth, that Kaliyuga is not able to exert its full influence. And I have said this numerous times, that this business of Kaliyuga appearing only when Sri Krishna is leaving, Sri Krishna is himself saying that, look, here is Kaliyuga. You know what I'm saying? So I think that is the answer to that. Now, the more difficult problem is, so if we accept that traditional Kaliyuga started 3102 BCE, which most people do accept, I mean, in general, then it means that the Mahabharata war has to occur after that. Maybe as Dr. Kalyan Raman, one of the very wonderful, scientists has pointed out, that maybe that Kaliyuga is commemorating the 10th year of Sri Krishna when he has, Kansa Charnur Mardana, that particular event it has maybe commemorated, something like that. See, those are very difficult things because the exact date of Sri Krishna, if you go back in the time to find out, I mean, I have found one particular date, which I have got somewhere on my drive, which I can do the next time. Pandavas also we have got. But Kaliyuga, that is my explanation. That Kaliyuga is unable to exert its full influence. Until Sri Krishna is on earth, there's no question.
I'm pretty convinced.
Talking about an avatara, a descent of the divine, well, it is entirely possible. We have seen far more crazy things even in our lifetime.
I have an observation in this, like
Yes.
there are multiple stages where the Kali Yuga has grown. That is there in Mahabharata. So whatever you said is absolutely right. The Krishna's demise is one place when the intensity of Kali Yuga increased. And there is another verse about Parikshit himself. After 60 years when he died, then the Kali become very strong. So
very strong.
It's a gradual process. So I fully agree.
Why? Because Parikshit, the name Parikshit, you see, he is protected from one of the great astras, the Astra Vidya of Ashwathama himself, who is one of the Chiranjeevis. Ashwathama, who is Ashwathama? Rudravatar, Rudramsha, right? Rudramsha has done a particular prayoga of Brahmashiras, if you like, or Brahmastra, as you wish, depending. And that particular thing has gone, to the Garbha, and that he has survived. He has survived that, right? Parikshit. मतलब परीक्षा पास हो गया है. आप समझ रहे हैं? That is that Parikshit, right? Who has survived what not? What not has he survived? He has survived that. That is an impossible thing when you think of it. You see, most people, this question was asked in one of the seminars. Somebody asked me, do you believe in these astras and all that? And I am, of course, Shishya of much late Nakhate Maharaj. And Nakhate Maharaj and, all the other gurus also say, the astras are mental powers. Okay, they are actually powers of a mind which has basically been meditating, doing tapascharya for decades. And Arjun, at that point of time, if you consider before he has got the Divyastras, he has done 12, 13, 18 hours, whatever tapascharya for 12 years in the Himalayas. With Brahmacharya, I suggest to anybody who doubts it, try doing 8 hours a day for just a month and see what happens. I shouldn't say that. Because
next
if you cause
question,
yourself injury, then there'll be a problem.
RC, next question. RC does such things, that's why.
Yeah,
next
yes,
question.
yeah.
My next question was to do with Krishna's age, and it was particularly not because कि क्या उम्र थी, कब मथुरा छोड़ा, कहते हैं कि कितने दिन कहाँ पे रहे, वो सब था. But what I'm trying to get at is the reason why I want to know Krishna's age is that after he became king, and because it's clear that Krishna Kalindi Vivah जब वो द्वारकाधीश बन गए थे उसके बाद हुआ था. So just to get an idea that इंद्रप्रस्थ उस समय पर था और किस समय पर he came to with Arjuna on his chariot, and I think there is only one verse, one small para about Krishna and Yamuna's Vivah.
See, the problem is you're talking about the Puranas, aren't you? You're talking about Puranas? You're not talking about Mahabharata.
नहीं, भागवत में भी एक line.
You're talking about Bhagavad, but what I'm trying to say over here is, see, Krishna's birth, right? If you take the Puranas, then he has got exaltation of the grahas in so many, so many grahas, basically. Right. Now, the exaltation of grahas, how do you determine it? You determine by Rashis. Now, the problem is in the Mahabharata, where is the Rashi mentioned? Very few places. Is that chart mentioned in Mahabharata? No, unfortunately. Right? Therein lies the whole problem. If you actually try to go back, then I think 3112 BC, you can find, something which is close to it, right? So that if you're asking, then next time I'm happy to show you, because I've got all that material with me, on various drives, and I think explained it on one or two other channels long time ago, I think last year.
The specific thing we want to know is the Vivah of Kalindri, Yamuna Kalindri and Krishna.
And what would be Krishna's age around that time? I don't want that specific age. I just want to know कि Mathura छोड़ा, द्वारकाधीश बने.
Imagine this. Now, if you consider that at 3102 BC, as per various some scholars, that he was actually 10 years of age. If he was in 3102 BC, he was 10 years of age. Then from there, the Mahabharata war is occurring what? 33 plus 2, so that is 35 years later. So at Mahabharata war, he'll be 45 years of age from that point of view, right? Now, whether you believe that or not is difficult, because the problem is that there is a discrepancy between the texts of the Harivamsha and all these other things with the Mahabharata text itself, right?
And,
So,
in the Puranas, he is called as a king, but Shishupala's main contention, but Krishna is not a king. So Puranas did not rely.
right, so therein lies the whole problem, because there is a bit of a discrepancy between the two sort of mediums. Now, but this much is there, that if you consider that in 3102 BC he is 10 years of age, then in that case Sri Krishna, basically when he comes to the Mahabharata war, he must be 45 years of age. Does that make any sense to you, RCG?
Yeah.
I mean, the exact point at which the Vivaha is occurring, I'll need to check, because see, I'm writing another book on that.
Can we get to when was Krishna born? Because the whole idea is for us to get to a point where what would have been the year when Indraprastha को बनाया गया था and Krishna Kalandi Vivaha हुआ होगा, मतलब
3112 BC if you go to, okay, then you will find a lot of the things which are over there, right? Right. According to Raghavan's original research was that was, I think, the year in which he was born, right?
3112 BC when Krishna was born.
I can actually, if you give me a moment, I can actually get my notes are there, so I can actually tell you in a moment.
We can leave this for another time. And my other question is,
I'm pretty certain. If you give me 1 second, I'm pretty certain, because I think I have put it on Twitter also.
By the time he looks for the question, you can look for your.
I've got my question.
Yeah.
The idea is, Manish, what we're trying to get to, Neeraji, me and Aryan, all of us, कि इंद्रप्रस्थ की जब स्थापना हुई होगी, and कृष्णा कलंदी विवाह जब हुआ, because उससे पहले उनका रुक्मणी से, चंद्रावली से सबसे विवाह हो चुका था. So she was the fourth wife.
1 second, let me just come back to this. So Yudhishthir's birth date is 3114 BC, right? 3114 BC, and that is on a Jyeshtha nakshatra on Shukla Panchami, and Surya at Chitra, Mercury plus Venus at Hasta. I know, because I have I've put it out.
314
August 29th, 3114 BC, because that has to be a Jyeshtha nakshatra. So
he was a Virgo.
So, from the Hindu point of view, he will be a Scorpio actually, because the moon will be basically in Jyeshtha. But from the sun point of view, sun is in Chitra. So yes, you can say.
What about Krishna? Krishna was a Leo.
So that must be 3112 BC. So that has to be a Rohini nakshatra, no? That particular one. I'll come back to you on that particular thing.
Krishna was a huge amount of the sun. What was the Rashi of Krishna?
Cancer in by sun, I guess.
No, 1 second. I will try, and if you give me a moment, actually, give me a moment. I have got it with me. If you just give me 1 moment, I'll come back. Give me 1 second.
Could be a Leo or a Virgo. Cancerians are too serious of people to do all the Ras Leela and everything.
And
Cancerians would go straight for the war.
I think I want to ask this question. Why he said that he started with the Western astrology and then he left it and came back to Vedic. And I also had actually started with Western astrology, and then I realized the generality, and I came back to Vedic. And he has explained why. I mean,
Ronak says it's exalted moon Taurus.
Yeah,
when I started reading all these Linda and God knows how many I read, but I just found it too generalized, and accuracy is not there in Western.
We should not, like, for example, if it is trying, like they are trying to put some videos, etc., we should avoid using such terms like Yudhishthira, because this Western astrology is very recent. You cannot fit it to the ancient period, some 3,000 or 5,000 years ago. So
what I'm going to do?
Yes, Doctor.
I am going to share the screen. And I'm going to go on to Redshift and I'm going to show you Sri
Krishna's
Krishna.
date.
Wow.
Give me 1
Awesome.
second. See, I've got all of this with me, but what happens? Just give me 1 second. Let me go there.
We are about to see something very amazing.
Bring up Redshift.
We just saw the retrograde Mars, you know, how it was there in the time of Nepal tragedy that June, and also
Right.
the...
Right. And now let me go to the year. See, I've got it all written down, you see. So, say Krishna should be, let me check now. 27th of July and 311. So it has to be minus 3112. Presuming that should be correct. Jijit will correct me if I'm wrong anyway.
27th July.
27th July 3112 BCE.
3112 BC.
BC, yeah. Because I have done, actually, I spent around 6 months a few years ago looking just at the dates of Yudhishthir.
So what was his Rashi then?
I'm telling you, I'm showing you. I'm showing you 1 second. So we have to go to midnight, really.
Midnight.
So isn't it? If we go according to the traditional, this one, I had got all this saved. You see, what happened is that one of the computers which I had, that particular thing is, I don't know where it is now. Can
Must
you
be
see?
Rohini only.
Exactly. Can you see? Can you see over here? This thing here? And can you see that this is Aldebaran? So I think it will be Rohini Nakshatra.
Taurus.
Yeah, and Jupiter. I don't know if Shivansh is around. Shivansh can actually find it on
Hindi Rashi. I don't want the zodiac Rashi. Hindi Rashi.
Because I don't have this particular.
So you can do Jehora. Jehora. Should I check it on Jehora?
So Jehora, this guy is there. Shivansh is there. Shivansh can actually look at it.
I want to know is Rashi as per.
Around. So can you see the sun over here? So when you look at it from the viewpoint of nakshatras, can you see that the demarcation is not as Rashis? If you say like that, then the sun is in Leo.
Okay.
You get what I'm trying to say. And then you get Jupiter over here, you get Venus over here. So Venus, I think, is the only one which is the odd one out. The rest, you look at this. This is a beautiful Saturn, terrific Saturn, which is Saturn is placed in Libra. And then Mars is in Capricorn.
So what is his zodiac Rashi?
Zodiac Rashi meaning?
Means like
Sun
what
sign
is sun sign?
would be
What is his sun sign?
Oh, sun. Yeah. No.
Leo.
So sun will be Leo only.
Leo.
It cannot be anything else.
What was the year you mentioned?
So 3112 BC.
Hello.
Yes.
July 20, Shivansh is here. Very good. Okay. So Shivansh.
Yes, sir.
July 27 minus 3111. I think it will be on Jehora also. 3112 BC.
Just 1 second, sir.
Minus
July
3111.
But just one clarification: why is Janmashtami then usually, as per the Tithis, celebrated between the 20th of August and between 5th September always? It just falls within those 2 weeks.
No. I think that is to do with the precession of the equinoxes. That is what is happening
over
over
a
there.
period of time, things.
But July, it is not celebrated according to the July, August, that sort of thing. It is celebrated according to a tithi and a particular, lunar month. Which I can't remember what.
But that falls only within those dates. Why doesn't it fall before? It never comes in July.
Not necessarily so. Not necessarily so. No, but this is precession. This is precession of
Maybe
equinox.
25,000 years ago. No? Just explain the precession part.
So basically,
25,000. Krishna was only 5,000 years ago, as we see.
I'm saying he has
the precession cycle. Jijit will be able to explain precession better. But see, the point I'm trying to make, I'll show you all this on a different software. You see, this particular software is very difficult to show you all this. But Shivansh will tell you the date. That is what we are looking for.
Yes, July 27 minus 3111 in
Yes.
Julian.
Right.
Okay.
In Julian.
In fact,
So
Dr.
Indraprastha
Pandit,
date कब आएगा
Neeraji,
फिर?
we
Indraprastha
definitely will
date
get to
कब?
the question.
My last
Indraprastha
question.
date कब
My
आएगा?
last question.
अच्छा, last question, yeah.
Okay. Before that, RC, we have Mr. Krishna who has a lot of questions on chat. But
Yeah, so I'll just give one, Aryan.
now I'm requesting him come on the video to put up any questions so that Dr. Pandit can take them, because it's going to be very challenging for me to take out the questions from the chat.
One second.
No,
Let
no.
me come to that.
No,
One
RC
second.
will ask his last question and he has to move out, he's saying. That's why.
Yeah, I have my small daughter waiting for me, please.
Yeah, so just.
Okay.
She's just 5 years old and I'm alone with
ask
her.
your last question and then we.
My last question is, why do you say that the war cannot start on an Amavasya?
अभी तो बोल तो दिया, अभी इसके आगे क्या बोलना है?
क्या?
अभी हो गया ना, कितनी बार वो देखो, war cannot start on Amavasya. It's very straightforward because
He's
there's
not asking technically, he's asking the war is not an auspicious thing. So Amavasya पे क्यों नहीं होता? Like, he's asking on a very different aspect, spiritual aspect.
No. In South India, wars do start on Amavasyas occasionally. It is not completely unknown. But this particular war has not started on Amavasya. We are very, very certain about it. Why? Because we are saying that the 14th war night is in the late waning phase. So if the 14th war night is in late waning phase, then the first day of the war must be in late waxing phase. Very simple.
No, मेरा तो बस ऐसी question था. So you say that ऐसा नहीं है. South में wars have started on Amavasya.
It can occur. Oh yes, yeah. I mean, it can occur. Occasionally,
so this is what I was also thinking.
Nothing to do with spiritual.
Amavasya has nothing to do with the Kurukshetra war.
Yeah, but Amavasya, war cannot occur on Amavasya in Kurukshetra anyway. That is an impossibility. See the chat, let me just bring let me stop the share for a second and go to the chat. You are asking about Bhishma. The Bhishma, because I haven't gone on Bhishma.
No, this is not me. Mine is ऊपर. मेरा बहुत ऊपर है.
Then एक minute.
Krishna has posted some questions. If you can take them, Dr.
Yeah, we can take Krishna ji's questions now. Manish, we have to reconnect soon to find out actually some details about Indraprastha and Yamuna ji. Krishna का इंद्रप्रस्थ से क्या है, इंद्रप्रस्थ कब बना, और हमको ये भी देखना है कि जो सेंट्रल विस्टा अभी आया है, why is it coming now? Why is there some change, the dynamics changing? Ram Mandir coming now, central vista coming now. Where are we heading to? And in all of this, will renaming Delhi to Indraprastha, will it play an important role?
No. Delhi should always be renamed to Indraprastha. I think that I am not going to say anything.
So can you give us a day? Can you give us a day and date when it should be renamed?
It should be a Guru Pushya. It should be a Guru Pushya.
That's exactly the date.
And it may actually be the date, for example, when it may be done. But we can check. We can check. But it should be a Guruvar linked to the Pushya Nakshatra, preferably in the waxing phase. Preferably,
Can we do a separate half an hour session on Indraprastha?
Yes, that's exactly what I was.
I think we should do that. I think.
Yeah. Sure. So next week,
please include Yamuna also in that.
Okay. Yeah. Now the Bhishma Moksha.
Anything else, RC?
No. I'm good. Dr. Manish, so it's such a pleasure.
No, absolutely. You see, it's just that somebody has asked on chat, you see all these questions on Bhishma Moksha, you see. Bhishma Moksha, I want to just show that because the issue is that otherwise, there will be a confusion. Now, what is the question asked on Bhishma Moksha? The question which has been asked is, you are counting, give me a second, let me just find my Bhishma Moksha slides. Right. What basically is being asked is that you are saying that there are 2-3 different verses which are being quoted in the Bhishma Moksha. One is one verse which is being quoted is, for example, I think this verse. Ashta panchashatam ratriha shayanasyaadya megataha shareshu nishita agreshu yatha varsha shatam tataha, which is the verse 27, right? Now, what they are saying is, why you are not counting this? So this is originally, this entire thing has been taken by Dr. Raghavan from Chennai University, 1969. This particular idea of counting from day one, and which has got the sanction of, I think, 2 or 3 of the great saints of that time and one of the Shankaracharyas also. And why is that? So if you look back at this, the Pandavas went back to Kurukshetra to visit, to go to Krishna, to go to Bhishma. So Pandavas went to see Bhishma, and Bhishma is saying, Ashta Panchashatam Ratrya Shayana Sadhya Megataha Shareshu Nishita Agreshu Yada Varsha Sharnatata. So there is this verse, and then there is another verse which is talking about 56 day cycle, right? And in my book also I have said these are two very, very difficult things to prove. Now let me try and see if I can bring out some of this over here, right? This Bhishma Moksha, which I am talking about 58 nights, I am talking about those 58 nights coming from sleepless nights, 58 sleepless nights, coming from when Bhishma has entered the battlefield. Not from the start, but from when Bhishma enters the battlefield. Now, anybody who is familiar with wars, World War II, it's very characteristic. There are other wars which have been fought in India. The battle commander will enter few days before the war actually starts. And this has happened over here also. And this is why he has entered 3 days, the battlefield 3 days before. And because Bhishma is sleepless, why is he sleepless? We have all heard about Bhishma's terrible, terrible pratigyas which he has taken to defend Hastinapur. And he is afraid that he will never be able to do this task anymore. So he is sleepless because of that. And he has spent 58 sleepless nights to Bhishma Moksha. That is why that 58 day cycle is there. Now, originally, this particular 58 night cycle was not counted in the Raghavan theory. Raghavan's theory only took account of 56 days, because there are two discrepant verses which are there. And I also say that there are two discrepant verses. Because I have moved Raghavan's theories first day of the war by 3 days, I've got additional, I've got those 3 days basically, and I can fit it in that 58 night cycle quite well. And why am I saying that? Why am I saying that that has to be counted from there? Is because it is almost like an afterthought. You see, Bhishma is lying on a bed of arrows, right? He is supposed to have got a boon from Sri Krishna that the arrows should not hurt him. And Uttarayana has now come. So the boon is perhaps expired at Uttarayana, maybe, who knows, right? So he has to have clarity before that, no? Because he has recited Vishnu Sahasranam and all these things, hasn't he? And today is incidentally an Ekadashi, isn't it? Yeah. And he has recited Vishnu Sahasranam. Kim japan muchyate jantur janma sansara bandhanat Bhishma uvacha jagat prabhum deva devam anantam purushottam. Hai na? Correct, hai na? This is what he has said, right? So he has clarity over there, we are seeing. So then why is he saying over here suddenly that Ashtapanchashatam Ratre Shayana Sade Gataha Shareshu Nishita Agreshu Yatha Varshe Shatam Tatha? The only explanation for the discrepancies which he is himself, what he's saying, right? Because if he has got a clear mind over there and he's not got pain over there, why has he got pain over here, right? So the only way to explain it is that he's saying that I have spent 58 sleepless nights on the battlefield. Oh, and as an afterthought, now each moment is actually really, really, problematic because perhaps the boon has expired at Uttarayana. Maybe that is what he's talking about, right? So this is one explanation, all right? And there is one particular researcher, I think Dr. Saranathan, who has given a wonderful explanation to correlate those two theories, which is basically that the 56 days should be counted from the time of Gita and that the 58 days should be counted from, I think her suggestion is a Bharani Homa. That is fine as for her. But in our thing, basically what we are saying is that the first part of the verse and the second part of the verse are, I am explaining the verse actually, which I think this particular person may or may not accept that explanation. So that is one thing. What is the other thing which he has asked? Just give me 1 second. Let me stop the screen share and go there. So 58 is done. And then he's saying Rohini was at sunrise. No, but Rohini was not at sunrise. So because he's saying in the chat, if we count from the first day of the war, Rohini was at sunrise. No, because that particular thing, I don't know where he has got from. In our, this thing, it is Mrigashira actually. And when 54 stars, Bhishma's count was not star based. I think it's difficult what he's asking. Right. And then what else?
Can Krishna Kumarji ask directly? Is it possible?
Yeah, in fact, I requested him to do so, but I think he has only put it on the chat. He may have his own challenge. Thank you for acknowledging that Jayashree is actually described in the.
Oh yeah, because I mean, is absolutely wonderful researcher, and one of the few researchers who has actually gone into some depth. I mean, we may have our differences, and she may have completely different point of view, but there's only 70 years really separating the two theories. So it's a 3K BCE day. I'm always happy to acknowledge 3K BCE dates. I always acknowledge, as but she has done some wonderful research. Yes. See, let me just go to this. Right. Now, one thing which I want to point out, which nobody else has done, okay? There is a particular verse which nobody has looked at, okay? And even Dr. Achar, I think from what he told me, even he had not looked at this verse. And it just came to me as a flash. This is verse 6, which is there in chapter 153. Sa niryo gajapura dhyajake parivaritaha drishtva nivrittam adityam pravrittam chottarayanam. This is a verse which is clearly saying when exactly the Bhishma Moksha is occurring. And the Bhishma Moksha is occurring, actually, if you look at it, you see the second part of that verse, Drishtva, he sees. It is not measured with a gnomon or something like that. He's seeing winter solstice. He's seeing Uttarayana. Now, modern scientists have actually found out that solstice, comes from this Latin word solstice terra, but they have found out that the sun remains apparently still for 3 days. In the sense, when we are looking at it, it remains still for 3 days at solstice. That is why it is called solstice. The sun stands still, right? And it is only on the 4th day that it is seen to move upward. So that release from that 3 days of sthamman, of apparent stoppage, is occurring at that point. And that is what is being described in this verse over here. This verse, Drishtva Nivritta. So Nivritta, the release, Adityam, release of the sun, or the sun, going in the opposite, in the direction, basically north. Pravrittam Chottarayanam, that it has joined Uttarayana. That is occurring only on this day. That means that this is not the day of winter solstice. And that is highly important to understand. All the theories which are saying that this is the day of winter solstice go wrong as a result. This is the 4th day after winter solstice. And there is another very peculiar verse which is actually giving us the exact moment of Bhishma Moksha. Shukla Pakshasya Chashtamya Maghamasasya Parthiva Prajapatye Cha Nakshatre Madhyam Prapte Divagare. See, beyond all the timelines, because the timelines, there are two, from my point of view, there are two conflicting timelines. I feel sometimes that I have maybe done some reconciliation in them, and some other people have done some wonderful work on them, but I am unable to accept those timelines perfectly because they are very, very difficult timelines from the way they have been presented. But this verse is pointing to Nakshatra and Tithi, and Nakshatra and Tithi don't lie. Prajapatye cha nakshatre madhyam prapte divagare. So in the middle part of the day, if you look at it over here, you can see this is around 1400 hours I am taking on January 17th, which is the 4th day after winter solstice, which has occurred on January 13th, 14th, basically that 13th night. And you can see over here that the moon is clearly at Rohini Nakshatra again. And this is Rohini Nakshatra. So this is, I think, beyond this corroboration, I don't think anybody else has done this corroboration 4th day after winter solstice on a Shukla Ashtami for Bhishma Moksha, on a Rohini Nakshatra, that too which is occurring in the middle part of the day. So it can't occur just at sunrise or at sunset. It has to be in the middle part of the day. Yeah, Madhyam Prapte Divakare.
Answers the question raised by KKR.
So I think that answers the question in the sense that there are different, different timelines, right? And if you're talking about different timelines, the only explanation for that timeline, because if you say that Bhishma is falling on the 10th day and then the timeline starts, then the war must start on Amavasya. But the 14th war night is pointing away from that. That is why it must start on the first day only, or before the first day, though, that counting. right? Because if you consider that, I mean, this is going to be very, very difficult for all the lay people over here to
Yeah,
understand.
exactly. We are actually getting a little
Concerned that this is going to be boring.
no, not boring, because the point is that you have to have a little more knowledge of astronomy and astrology to be understanding all these things. So
Right.
I have only one question, and Aryan, you have any question, or can I just ask
Yes,
one question?
I have a very layman's but
हाँ.
tactical and strategical question.
हाँ.
देखिए हम the main objective for all of us academicians, historians, archaeologists, and even people who belong to this ethnicity and we take the pride of it, our main objective is to precisely establish Mahabharat as a complete concrete history. So, archaeological finding, dates, astronomical dates, astrological interpretations. These, I mean, the whole thing to establish Mahabharat as a concrete history. Okay, it has to be a conjugated effort. My simple basic question is: when will this debate end, or is there a particular strategy for an unified procedure where we can put all our brains together the way probably the Western historian does at times? I mean, they have few organizations where they put their brain together and finally they come up with a fact included with narrative and they put down the history as. क्या हम एकत्र होकर
Yes. Aryan, that I had told you. Dr. Manish knows about it. He can answer that.
I mean, what should be a very strategic move to?
Yeah, Manish, you can answer because he knows what we are
finally come into a conclusion of the dates.
Yeah.
What are you asking exactly?
He wants to know how to synchronize and come to a consensus date so that we can chronologically put it into that this is the document and this is the dates of these things. The war date is this, Krishna's birth is this, death of Krishna is this.
Here, I'll tell you what the problem is.
Yeah.
I will tell you what the problem is. The problem is you got a group of scholars, for example, who are the traditional scholars, who will never accept any other date other than the 5 dates which are there 36 years before Kali Yuga, the traditional whatever Kali Yuga 3102 BCE. They will never accept any other date because whatever we are suggesting is against their traditional belief that Krishna must live at Kali Yuga.
Okay,
that is one problem, right? So if Krishna must live at Kali Yuga, then 36 years
asking
before
for a solution, Dr.
I'm
Pandit.
I'm trying to aim for a solution. किसका solution क्या?
नहीं मैं बता रहा हूँ देखो जो जिनका belief है सिर्फ, see, because they are not taking, so whatever their theory is, they're going to fit in within those 4 or 5 or 6 years, which is there before 3102.
How do we come to a consensus in that?
So for them, I think for that group of scholars, no matter what we say, it is never going to be useful. It is not useful for them because they're relying on their belief and the Puranic evidence, whatever they are pointing out, which is discrepant to the Mahabharata evidence, right? So if they are saying Krishna must be born 125 years before Kali Yuga starts, then we can't do anything much with that, right? However, as far as the evidence goes otherwise, we can definitely agree that it is definitely going to be a 3K BCE date. That much is definite. There's no question about it, right? So 3K BCE date is definite. Majority of us are agreeing that there are 2 eclipses or 3, whatever it is, occurring before the war. We are saying there are 3 eclipses or 2 eclipses occurring 36 years before the war. I don't subscribe to any eclipse in the Mahabharata war timeline at all, ever. So I am talking about that, for example. So we are agreeing on certain basic points. We are agreeing that the 14th war night is definitely a waning phase moon rise. We are agreeing on certain other factors as well, right? So there are some points where we are not agreeing at all. And 1 or 2 researchers are completely out with all the other researches, whatever is going on. So 5561 BC, for example, is completely out of the equation over here. Like Jijitji also pointed out, there is a particular point, between 2400 and 3000 whatever BCE that we can talk about it. But 3067 BCE is fitting the vast majority of the evidence. The vast majority of the evidence, if you take the evidence into account. If you don't take the evidence into account, then, well, then it is a
Move
bit
to the
difficult.
next question. My simple question is,
Yeah.
why Vedic astrology is stronger and has more authentic results in terms of interpretation and all than the Western zodiac system?
Right. So, first of all, Vedic astrology has got a huge amount of people who are basically, it's not just one person. It's thousands and thousands and thousands of people who have come over the ages, and they have basically come and done their research, and they have reached their conclusions, right? And their conclusions basically are not based on how we are doing the research now. They are based on, they are sitting in meditation, they are also doing their calculations, etc. And this is a long time ago, and it's been carried on for a period of time, right? Over centuries and centuries. So when they have done their research in that particular manner, then they have come to certain conclusions, right? Um, the lunar mansions, the way they are formulated in Hindu astrology, they are not being considered in Western astrology at all. There are entire, there are shastras and shastras on Hindu astrology, and so on. So when you consider it like that, it is a very different, it's a very different situation to Western astrology. And astrology, you see, in the West, basically, what does astrology even mean? Right? It is having a very, very weak base. That is the whole problem.
छोटा सा extension है आप ही के सवाल का नीरज जी. Considering the overall astronomical pattern, so what are the chances? Say with my humble knowledge into this subject, what are the chances that the same pattern what you have explained during the time of the from Pushya to Shravana, what are the chances that the same pattern can be followed in another dimension of time? I mean to say, considering the precision of Earth, or is there a chance that the same particular pattern can happen in previous time in the history?
Right.
Yeah.
So the two eclipses, Kartik Purnima eclipse and the Jyeshtha Amavasya eclipse. Okay. These two eclipses, along with the Mars retrogression and the Saturn's, the Saturn's position at Rohini. That Mars retrogression, Jyeshtha and Anuradha, along with the Kartik Purnima lunar eclipse and the solar eclipse at Jyeshtha Amavasya. These four things occurring together is occurring only once in the last 7,000 years. 7,000. Last 7,000 years, only once. If you consider all these four things together. There is one more date, which is 2183 BCE, where some of those conditions are replicated. But in that particular year, the war has to start on Amavasya, which is not possible. And there are other problems.
Yeah. Manish, I have, it's partially a question and partially observation.
Right.
That like I have listened to the talk, and as you know, I always try to strengthen each theory and then try to get the consensus. So it should be considered as strengthening thing. So
Sure.
one observation is that the slow moving the slowest moving you considered as Saturn, and definitely it will be helping to place the probable location of the Kurukshetra war, because it's slow moving, so that it will be like a little more precise. But there is one more thing which is slower than the Saturn, that you will definitely know the precision of equinox. And that is one thing, because you have been correct for so many things. So I just want, as a person, I want to have you incorporate that precision of equinox into the theory. And because one reason is that this is the one thing I am seeing, difference I am seeing with the yours and Bhatnagar's theories. He first incorporated the precision of equinox. Only after that is correct, he is going to anything else, including observations in the other observations in the Mahabharata verses. So this is the difference of approach I'm seeing, and this is the crux of it. I am seeing that we are reaching the very last phase of deciding which is the Mahabharata date. And if there is is it possible to convince all the stakeholders that particular part also is addressed? I think US is the best theory then, because the precision of equinox, he is giving a lower limit of 2,300 BC and a higher limit of 2,300 BC and a lower limit of 1,200 BC. So that range he is coming and he is sticking to it. And what is the calculation that has gone into two directions, you and Bhatnagar? That is, I want to know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Very good. Very good. Thank you. Right. So Dr. Achar once had actually looked at this, and I actually made up a couple of videos on this also. Made out 2 videos on this. If you look at what it says, Rohini Nakshatra is one of the most important nakshatras which is being considered in the Mahabharata. Everywhere you will see it is talking about Rohini Nakshatra. It is talking about Bhishma Moksha, which is occurring in that particular, on a Magha Shukla Ashtami, correct? Right? Agreed? So that Magha Shukla Ashtami, Bhishma Moksha, 4th day after winter solstice, can only occur if there is a Adhik Masa. And Adhik Masa, what we count today is that there is a, 2 Amavasyas, no Sankramana, all that sort of stuff. That is fine. We have one particular Adhik Masa over there. Now, if you take that into consideration, if you take that the Magha, there should be a full moon basically near Magha, correct? Right? So that means that the sun should be on the opposite side of the zodiac. Agreed? Agreed? Right? That means the vernal equinox is going to be 90 degrees from there. It has got to be at Rohini. Agreed? Right. When is the vernal equinox at Rohini? Go and check Cyber Sky. It will show you that that particular date cannot be beyond 2400 BC. So 2400 BC to 3200 BC only. That too, if you go and look at it really carefully, closely, it's around 2800 BC to 3200 BC or thereabouts. I checked that, that precession of the equinox is what you're talking about, because see, axial precession only we are talking about. Because there are a lot of researchers who are talking about the oscillating, 1 or 2 researchers who talk about the oscillation of the equinoxes. And that is the Surya Siddhanta version. But unfortunately, there is no definite proof for it. And there is nobody else who accepts it, right? So we have to go with axial precession until and unless somebody actually comes up with the gold standard theory saying axial precession is wrong, correct?
As of now, we will have to only consider the precision of equinox. The vibrations are not very much concerned. We are not concerned about the oscillations of the equinox.
Right. So axial precession, and so vernal equinox at Rohini. Vernal equinox must be at Rohini. And if you take that into consideration, you are coming to that 2800 to 3200 BC mark only.
Correct.
That too with Adhik Masa only.
Yeah. So maybe I will suggest Neeraj to have maybe an exclusive kind of a.
I have already discussed that the soon the corona goes, we are going to have a 5-day workshop only focused on this in person, with taking into account each and everyone's date and crash bed discussing it so that we come to a conclusion.
Yeah.
One more thing I want to point out, Gigi. One small thing I want to point out. See, if you go to Bhattagarji's date, there are a few really problematic things in that date. Okay, which first thing is that the war is starting on Amavasya in that date. We have already said war cannot start on Amavasya. We have said Bhishma Moksha, he is taking the Rohini Nakshatra on the day of winter solstice. But we have already said that should be on the 4th day after winter solstice. So there is no Rohini Nakshatra there.
Correct.
We are talking about Nakshatras of Balarama pilgrimage. He has reversed those. So that date is completely gone. Okay. I mean, from that point of view.
Yeah,
what I'm saying is, if we consider astronomy.
Yeah, in your this talk also, I'm not actually not going to the individual specifics of it, but I'm only talking about the methodology, like desire on the range using the equinox and then going in. So in that, what are the differences that has to come out? And you have conclusively you have proved that in individuals there are a lot of discrepancies in Bhatnagar's data. I am fully agree about that. I have your talk is very good enough for that. And one more thing is, since this is a 2-hour long session, so maybe we have to break up into small videos, then only it can spread.
Actually, also, it's going to be very, very difficult for actually Aryan to work out, because we want to focus on the date of the war. That is one part. And that date of the war, that particular slides, Dr. Manish, I think we'll have to put you in touch. He will guide you how we do it. And the second was the date of Indraprastha, which I think we'll have to do.
That we'll do.
And when can we do that? You please tell us so that Aryan can sort of schedule it for us.
Just give me 15 days or so. I'll need to make a talk specifically on that. See,
Yeah.
because I am working on that. I'm making another book on that. In fact, that was
I
my.
told you we want the date of Indraprastha. You see, because for us now we are pitching. So we want actually each one here to tell us that question which Aryan you may ask, the naming of Indraprastha. And we want to have a statue of commemorating Krishna and my Yamuna here in Delhi. So how you can put in your energies and tell us that how and when it is possible, because we are pitching for it, which is the good date for us to go and approach the Prime Minister. I think we have some very renowned people with us to tell us this.
Yeah, Neeraji, one point I want to add in that also, because some people was mentioning about the like, because we are involving Yamuna into it, some trying to have a relation, how when is the dating of the relationship between Yamuna and Krishna, but this is a Puranic thing, so you have to be very careful about that kind of an association.
No, we are not bringing Yamuna because of Puranic thing. We want to bring Yamuna because Yamuna is the bedrock on which Indraprastha survived. So we have to commemorate that Kul Devi so that Yamuna can be revived as a sacred water body.
That is fine. But
that we have done that ceremony recently. We actually did the ceremony on Yamuna banks.
Correct.
But I'm not asking for that part. I'm asking because Yamuna needs to be revived.
Yeah, but thing is that the Krishna Yamuna ki Vivaha.
Yeah, that is mentioned in several texts. Because see, there is a Vallabhacharya tradition, and they have this whole story about Yamuna, and they have a lot of literature on that, which we can share with Dr. Manish.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that is a Puranic kind of an explanation. Mahabharata is a little more historical in that, like the foundation.
See, when we considering Indraprastha, the land mass and the river existed even before Indraprastha was born.
Yeah, right. So that is a
even Hastinapur existed even before the capital Hastina was created.
Yeah. No, I think maybe I'm not articulating.
I've understood your problem, your question. You are trying to say we should not mix up Mahabharata with the Puranic, right?
Yeah.
So
Because
his question was not linked to Mahabharata. His question was linked to a particular event that has come down for generations, because he comes from Yamuna bed, he comes from Mathura, and they celebrate this every year.
Yeah, Shantanu marries Ganga. That is just an association. Like the territory started coming in Ganga. So similarly, Krishna marrying Yamuna is.
So you mean to say if they married, and what about where did Bhishma Pitama come from then?
Yeah. He may be somebody born on the banks of
No,
Ganga.
let's please not. Okay, let's not go into that, Dr. Manish. Please tell us about the putting up the statue of. We want your statement on. We want to commemorate Sri Krishna as the founder of Indraprastha. So everybody here in the panel, we want their views, one sentence each of you. Because we are recording this and we are making it into a video, we are going to bombard the PMO with this.
Look, it has to be done. Okay. But the thing is whether you want to do it as a temple or whether you want to do it just as a standalone statue structure, because the Shilpa Vidya in both of those will be completely different, right? That is one thing
what will make a better impact in today's society, because today's society making a temple always raises 101 questions.
But this is another problem. This is another problem. So you may wish to make it as just it can't be a bust. You want to make it as a
very huge statue, like the Loha stump of Patel, उससे भी बड़ा.
नहीं उससे बड़ा आप मत कीजिए. आप actually it needn't be that tall or that high, but it needs to be something which is seen, and it needs to be something which is maybe worshipped over there, in the sense that, you see, the problem is even if that thing itself is not worshipped, at least there should be something nearby over there, a very small.
No, we plan a regular Yamuna Aarti near there. That's Yamuna.
Yeah, that should be good. That should be good.
Yeah.
But it has to be done on a Sthira Nakshatra. It has to be done.
So you have to do the calculations and tell us, because we want to try to create a petition on this.
Yeah.
because they have already identified a place on Yamuna where they want to put up a statue. But they are not naming it as Krishna. They're saying 75 years of independence. Whereas we have not got independence. We have been an independent country for thousands and thousands of years. We actually got half our country broken in 1947.
I mean,
Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste, Neera madam. This is Krishna. Namaste to Pandit sir, Jijit sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I just because you said that you want one sentence from each one of us, so
Yeah.
I'd like to say one thing before you write some petition to PMO and come up with this kind of request to our Prime Minister. It's very important that all the scholars who are working on this field of Mahabharata and dating, they should come to a consensus, because why I'm saying this, just now Pandit ji told that the traditional scholars, their theory is completely based on belief. So I would like to differ from this point, because I would say that suppose all the simulations that Manish sir was showing to us, it was completely, the Panchang is quite different. It was there were no Ayamnasa calendar, and all these corrections were not made. It was completely based on Gregorian, Julian Gregorian calendar.
no, you're wrong. I would like to stop you right there. This
Okay.
particular idea that you are talking about, are you talking about Surya Siddhanta now?
Definitely, sir. Definitely.
Yeah, I am afraid nobody is going to tell that Surya Siddhanta is correct. Even the maker of Jai Hora, who has actually put forward the Surya Siddhanta calculations on basis of which you are proposing your alternative reality, right? Even that person is saying it should not be used. Number one. Number two, axial precession, because you were not there at that point, you see, and Jijit and me were basically having this exactly same, thing which I was saying, basically. Axial precession has got some kind of basis to it, which is, there's a huge amount of stuff on it. And Jijit was actually talking about the basis of axial precession. The problem is that Surya Siddhanta based oscillation of equinoxes, etc., that is got nowhere actually pratyaksha pramana now at this point of time. I mean, I know that people want to use it, but which version of Surya Siddhanta do you want to use, by the way? How many versions are there? Do you know?
But the Krishna
See,
statue has
I would
nothing to
suggest
do
that-
with the date of the war. We are just saying it is an accepted fact. Krishna laid the foundation. We're
Right.
not talking about
Then
the date.
there is no problem, of course.
Date of the it's a different line of activity we are doing to bring it into textbooks, and this is going to take almost a year, I think, from now, because we will have to have 2-3 workshops for it.
Exactly, madam. This is my point. If you are intending to put this in our textbook,
Then we need to come to a consensus. Yeah.
Yes. No. If our children are supposed to learn about Krishna, the first question that will come in mind of people is that when was Sri Krishna born and when was the war of Kurukshetra
But
being fought?
his date of birth is never in doubt. Krishna's date of birth is never in doubt. It's only the date of the war that is in war.
Not only date, ma'am. Along with that, when Krishna left the mortal body, that is also important. That date is also important.
You see,
That is, I said regarding textbook, it's a long process. We are at it. We have started the Triti Shastra into this year. It will take us a year. Today, I'm only asking, Krishna is the founder of Indraprastha. Should we not commemorate him with a tall statue here, so that people recognize Indraprastha as the one that was established by Sri Krishna?
Yes, madam. Agree.
Instead of saying 400-year-old tombs all around the place.
Neeraji, Krishnaji, so the Krishnaji, you will agree that that statue needs to come up, and the date of the Mahabharata war. I am sure there will be continual discussions which will occur, and each theory will have its multiple proponents, and it may go on. I don't think it will go on just for a year. I think this debate is going to continue. In 2008, when I came up with the Krishna history or myth, that time I didn't know very much astronomy. In fact, I never even wanted to get into this astronomy debate. Only because I was challenged, I came into the debate, and Dr. Achar took pity on me and taught me. So I learned a little bit of astronomy and all that, and I came into this sort of thing. But what I will say, one thing which I said in 2008, for Indian children, it will matter very little whether the date of the war was 3067 BCE or 3139 or 3136, whatever variety of traditional date it is. But it will matter very much if you say that there are 7 dates for the war or 21 dates for the war. If you say
I
there's one
completely
date
agree
for the
with you,
war,
sir.
if you
I
say there's
completely
one date for the war, they will take it, they will learn it, and that will be the end of that. And it will not make a difference from the point of view. See, from my point of view, I'm a 3K BCE person. That's my, that's, GGG knows very well. I mean, I sympathize with all the 3K BCE scholars a lot. And I hold them all in equal esteem and great respect. But what I am saying is that if you delay and you keep delaying, see, Dr. Achar is already gone now, right? And like that, because this thing is going to stretch out for a very long period of time, in my opinion, because nobody will ever come to a consensus on it. Because how will you come to a consensus between a Puranic text which is stating a set of things and a Mahabharata text which is stating completely different set of things? GGG, what do you say? You agree with what I'm saying?
Absolutely the same kind of thoughts. So maybe this is regarding what I have to say about the statue. One is, everybody agrees that there has to be a statue in Delhi, like many locations like Yamuna is there, and then some other located close to Vista. So so many things are there. There is no doubt about it. And I also agree with Manish ji that we don't have to introduce dates into this currently, because historicity is already agreed by all the stakeholders. Right. Before Manish ji, Professor Lal has talked about it, he also agrees about historicity. So that is a strong point and the common point that we need to agree and then put some submissions to the ministry or to convince anybody. And I fully agree about like students that it is like for a very long time. See, only after the Christian era and that CE AD kind of a timeline came, then only that our Bharatiyas tried to locate the chronological location of Krishna or Rama onto the timeline. So we were living without any problem for a long period of time. So I don't think that is a big problem for the students. But historicity is an important part. So somebody says that Krishna doesn't exist. That will create a lot of problem for our children. So since we have a consensus on the historicity part, I think we should go with that common denominator. And then, because that is all required. For example, Ramakshetra, that is based on the concept that 100 crore Bharatiyas believe in existence of that.
Aryan, you have anything to ask? Anything? Anybody has any other question to ask? Because I think we have gone almost for 3 hours now. Yeah.
He's given a lot of time. Just one thing. मुझे जो लगता है on a perspective of youth and perspective of layman, वो ये है कि इंद्रप्रस्थ और महाभारत के एसेंस को जो ड्यू इम्पोर्टेंस मिलना चाहिए था वो शायद अभी तक नहीं मिला. And unified, we should try to bring that essence back in terms of astronomical proof, in terms of archaeological proof, and establish it as a history and make it an integral part of our culture. Because we have been highly driven by Western narratives. We have to challenge those narratives and have to present it much more stronger than today it is. As Mr. Pandit said, Dr. Pandit said, times are passing by. Dr. Narahari nahi rahe. I completely agree to you, sir. So it's high time that now we come together and get into a consensus and bring the essence more, other than getting into a debate and getting divided. Okay, getting united and then challenging those narratives which are depriving us from our own culture. I think that should be the primary objective of Indraprastha altogether.
I totally agree with you. Getting Gautam Buddha at 1.8K BC, Vedvir Arya has done some exemplary work on that. So I mean, from my point of view, I am a traditionalist. Okay, my only break from tradition is I am saying that Mahabharata war is occurring after Kali Yuga. That is my only fault, if I may put it that way. Otherwise, I am purely a traditionalist from that point of view for various reasons. So
I think
my
Anybody
thing
else
is
in
also
the
to
panel
Krishna
wants
ji.
to ask a question? Anybody? I think there's some question there.
So do you have any more questions from the panel?
I would just like to also just say to Krishna ji from that point of view that Krishna ji, my sympathies are there with all the 3K BC scholars from that point of view. I mean, my sympathy is with anybody who says Krishna existed actually. But 3K BC scholars, I have a special place in my heart. So please don't take it like, oh, Pandit is always saying about 3067 BC, therefore he is, always out to tell that all these, traditional datas are all wrong and all that. It's not like that. It is not like that. It is only 70 years.
Yes, but you said that ours is completely based on belief, which I differ from you, which I cannot agree. We have our own truth also, sir. There are more than 400 descriptions.
Belief in Puranas and belief that Sri Krishna left at Kali Yuga, right? Based on whatever the Purana is. Agreed, no?
Yes, yes.
As opposed to some of the Mahabharata. You see, that my point is that there is no consensus even amongst the traditionalists as to which date it was. So
I think we can again plan for a very constructive debate, and we are not going to let you go, Dr. Pandit. We're going to catch hold of you to get to the core of Indraprastha.
So we'll work out the details. One is on specific only on Indraprastha, the date of Indraprastha. Because you've already got Yudhishthir, we have already got Krishna, and of course Draupadi, as I had said, but main is Indraprastha now. Draupadi can wait.
See, I've got Yudhishthir, Balram, Bhimsen, Arjun, and Sri Krishna based on certain.
Why not Draupadi? I have still don't understand why nobody thinks of Draupadi.
I mean, I would love
I'll
to
share
do
with
all
you
that.
what Dr. Narhari Achar did for me. So on that, you can maybe expand on that.
I will go for it. You see, my only thing is because I'm a full-time doctor.
I understand. Yeah, not a problem.
And this COVID thing has been going on for such a long time,
But Indraprastha ko thoda jaldi kar dijiye, because this is something that we have started only for this main purpose. It's high time we get Delhi out of the medieval age. Anything else? Aryan, pucho aur kisi ka question hai? We have a very renowned astrologer. I'm sorry, we could. I would.
Katti ji is over here. Katti ji is over here.
Katti ji, आप कुछ कहना चाहेंगे? आप कुछ अपनी views share करना चाहेंगे regarding Krishna and naming this place Indraprastha? What would you advise us? How do we move forward as per astrological?
Okay. Let me start the video. I think I usually switch off my video.
Okay.
Right. It's when Maniji is talking, I do only one thing. I listen.
No, he talks. Okay. He is very, very thorough. Yeah.
Yes, and from a Jyotish perspective, I think what Manishji talked, I can relate to a lot of things as far as Jyotish is concerned, especially the Shani, Saturn, Rohini. Okay, and even when it goes back even to the time of Dhritarashtra, the Vyasa telling Dhritarashtra of the omens, I think in this particular talk, I don't think Manishji talked about certain things of very, very dangerous. Listening to them itself is very dangerous. I mean, it doesn't give a very good thing. And the same thing happened with Rama's father.
Predictions.
The predictions and nimittas and the shakunas and things like that. And it also repeated during the Rama's father Dashratha's time, where the composition of Dashratha Krita Shani Stotra happened. But and this idea of Indraprastha is actually very fabulous, because I did not know that was the agenda before. I just came to know of this now. But let us try to understand that this Delhi concept must go, because what I was taught, what I was taught by my guru, Jyotish Guru, Tauji, is this Delhi thing is basically Khandavapast, where there was a lot of snakes, sarpas. And it was only the Arjuna and Krishna who actually did the fire where all the snakes died. But there was a promise. There was a promise by the snakes that they will go underground. They will go underground and they will keep coming to the surface to breathe. And in the process of breathing, they will let the poison out. And that is why Delhi has always been a poisonous kind of a place.
Counter that. We have to counter that.
we have to counter that, and Indraprastha is one of the best ways to do that.
And
Because
getting, see, my humble suggestion is, what my understanding is, I'm not a Jyotishi, I'm a very traditional thinker. What I understand, that there is always something which I think Dr. Manish had also once told me, which my father used to say, there's something called Pitra Dosh. And Pitra Dosh basically happens when you forget your ancestors and you forget to revere them and you forget to do whatever little rituals you have for their reverence. And Krishna is the Pitra of this Jagat. We need to install Krishna and Yamuna, because they are the people who have nourished us. They are the ones who have given us life at Indraprastha. Indraprastha would have been nothing without Yamuna, and it would not have been created without Krishna's bliss.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
for restoring this statue and restoring the glory of Yamuna again is actually our Pitra Puja. And once we do Pitra Puja, the Kalai will shant.
Right, exactly. And personally, when I travel to Delhi, because I'm an SAP technology consultant, I do a lot of mantras. So hopefully when Indraprastha comes, I don't have to do so many mantras to protect myself. Because Delhi is for me very.
You please tell me some mantras for my Draupadi Trust, because I'm trying for 18 years. This is my 18th year trying to get this thing done, and something or the other is. Somebody told me you have a विपरीत राजयोग, इसलिए आपका काम बहुत मुश्किल से होगा.
मुश्किल से होगा, लेकिन
होगा तो
होगा, वो भी suddenly भी हो सकता है.
विपरीत राजयोग. I couldn't understand anything and I kept asking you.
No, Viprit Rajयोग is when the Lord of the sixth, so the Trikasthanas, Dusthanas, Lord of 6th, 8th and 12th houses. The typical definition is basically that the Lord of the 6th, the Lord of the 8th and the Lord of the 12th basically is either posited in each other house or they are aspecting each other from one of those houses.
No, but technically in practical terms it is
in practical terms it is like Narendra Modi. In practical terms it is like Narendra Modi who has got a Viparit Rajyo. It is practical terms it is like me.
Oh, like so that is why my name is also NM.
Like I am sitting in my house doing absolutely nothing, doing a Mount Rath for Navratri, and suddenly somebody comes and challenges me and tells me, now you come and you debate on Mahabharata. That is why I have to go and learn astronomy. You see, and now I suddenly become known as astronomy.
Viprit Rajyog is not bad. You mean to say it is not a bad thing?
It is not. Viprit Rajyog is one of those things where every time the person is challenged, the person will eventually win. If the Rajyog is reasonably well placed, if it is well placed with at least one of those in their own houses, either the 6th or the 8th or the 12th Lord should be in the house.
That I don't know. I was just, somebody told me, so I was like, I thought that Viprit Rajyog means कि कभी होगा ही नहीं काम.
Viprit Rajyog is a very funny thing. Okay. It has. I have seen the effects for last 40 years. Okay. So. I am very well, and so has Katti. Katti is exactly the same chart.
I'll tell you the date of birth of my trust, and you have to tell me if the trust का ये काम होगा.
Katti ji ko bolo, we will tell you everything.
Yeah, Aryan, please, Aryan, we have to get this done. Katti ji, we have to get Indraprastha named, and we have to get Krishna here. It's my lifelong mission.
Absolutely, ma'am. And
this is my first. Draupadi was the first queen. You know, she's not getting her Sakha over here. Can you imagine?
Yes. And Manish actually said something which is very important, and we have a very similar charts.
Okay. Oh, really?
Okay. very similar charts, and Viprit, yes, and it's a very nice yoga to have in Kali Yuga.
Okay, so I will share the Draupadi Trust details, and then you can tell me what mantras to do to protect it so that Modi ji listens to us.
Yes, absolutely.
मोदी जी किसी का भी नहीं सुनते, ऐसा मैंने सुना है.
ऐसा ही है.
नहीं तो आपने कहा ना कि जब वो मंत्र करके जाएंगे तो वो ऑटोमेटिकली सुन लेंगे.
PMO की बात होगी तो I am happy to take your suggestion to one of my friends who is there, one of my juniors, but
PMO से ही होगा और कहीं से नहीं होगा, because स्टैचू का जगह बन गया है, everything. CPWD ने 90 एंट्रीज भी मंगा ली हैं, but they are all talking about 75.
मैडम आप डोवाल साहब से कहिए, आप किसी से कहिए, आपका काम हो जाएगा. आप तो वही बैठी है दिल्ली
डोवाल साहब से
इंग्लैंड में बैठा हूँ.
बात होती है, but he doesn't interfere in this. No, I'll tell him. I didn't strike me that I should tell him actually.
I think you should.
I'll tell him.
अब अजीत साहब को एक बार बोल दो, so I am sure he will take the necessary.
इस समय there is lot of tensions happening with Bengal में जो हुआ है ना, अभी lot of issues have happened. So he is like, the secretary told me कि madam सर इतने दुखी हो गए हैं, मतलब he is so busy that he.
Bengal is very bad.
A lot of things have been found, intelligence.
No, I am afraid.
Three foreigners have won elections. 3 foreigners have won.
Bengal is really, I am afraid.
I think Aryan needs to close up because Aryan को अपना time वो इसको manage करना मुश्किल हो जाएगा.
So we can go on and on, but we'll definitely love to have this.
Manish ji, Kuti ji का number share करिएगा, and the 2 of you have to guide me. I think Dr. Manish is too busy at the moment, so Kuti ji, please guide me that हमारा ये छोटा सा काम हो जाए बस.
और मनीष जी बोल देंगे तो हम, Manish ji is my guru. I cannot say.
So he has told me, he has promised me, but I know how hard pressed he is for time. I mean,
yes.
In spite of that, he's taken up so much time. I'm really grateful to you, Dr. Manish ji, but I want you to think about Indraprastha, and as you say, 15 days, 20 days, 1 month, I don't mind. But let's do it.
Okay. Let me come
I'll definitely bother you with a lot of questions from the public with on a layman's perspective.
Yeah, there are a lot of questions have come. Yeah.
Please, sir, to conclude.
Shall we conclude?
Let Dr. Pandit conclude.
Let Dr. Pandit.
See, the long and short of it is that this is the ancient heritage of India and of Bharata. Sri Krishna did exist. Kurukshetra war took place. Events in the Kurukshetra war, which are described in the Mahabharata, have a general resonance with reality. And it is important that those sort of things, come out and that the students of India actually study it, because you will see a very strong dissonance between what is actually happening in society and what we are talking over here. I mean, what we are talking over here is a very minor points of difference actually when you compare it to what is actually happening outside in society, where the younger generation, especially a lot of them feel that none of this ever happened because their influences, their people who are guiding them are people who are, and they may not even want a connection with the Bhagavad Gita, for example. So these are all things which have to be worked out, and therefore I hope that all this, comes to fruition. I was hoping in 2008 that I had already done all this work and I don't have to do it again, because that particular film went viral and, that particular date became very well known. But, well, we'll see how it goes.
Right, sir. Thank you so much. And it was indeed overwhelming and definitely thought-provoking, and also definitely a very challenging journey through this discussion. Thank you, sir. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Thank you, Manish ji. Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram. Jai Shri Krishna.
Thank you, everybody.
Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna. Yes.
Jai Shri Krishna to everyone. Thank you so much.
Shri Krishna.
Thank you, Manish sir.
Jai Shri Krishna, sir.
Thank you so much for joining, and all the
Pranam.
students, thank you for joining.
Thank you,
ma'am. It's a very enriching experience, and we look forward to more of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jai Shri.